May God comfort those who loved him, and may God rest his soul. But extraordinarily tonight, viewers and listeners, Downing Street seemingly doesn't want to listen, willingly or not, hitting out at those comments from Vance claiming, in recent days, quote, "We have seen people trying to interfere in our democracy and seeking to stir up division on our streets. The Novak family is grieving after Henry's horrific murder. They've said they don't want his death to be used to create further division, hatred or tension. We should respect their wishes." So why does America suddenly seem more willing to defend Britain's public interests and the safety of British people than our own politicians? With me now is Grant Stinchfield, host of Stinchfield Tonight on Real America's Voice News. Grant, great to have you on GB News. First of all, your response, please, to our dear leader, our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, telling you Americans to butt out of British affairs when it comes to the Henry Novak tragedy.
Keir Starmer is an absolute disgrace, Ben. I've been watching this man literally move further and further left as he gets higher and higher into power. And then to come out and say people just need to calm down about Henry Novak, what happened to him. I'm a father. This could have been anyone's son out there. And I remember Keir Starmer back in the day, what was he doing? He was praising George Floyd, the rioters here in the United States, saying it was such a tragedy. And yet, when you have a situation that's legitimate, like it is with Henry, and you have Keir Starmer saying, calm down, the complete opposite of what he was doing, razzling up the crowd in the United States when George Floyd died in the streets. To me, I don't know. It's disgusting. I think it's a wake-up call for America. I see what's going on in Great Britain. And, Ben, it breaks my heart for your nation to watch this liberal lunacy, this diversity, equity, and inclusion, these racial identity politics literally get people killed. It saddens me.
Yeah, by the way, Grant, as well as making George Floyd a martyr, Keir Starmer leading that charge here in Britain, he was also the leader of a party who was sending campaigners to the likes of Pennsylvania, battleground states during your election in 2024, campaigning for Kamala Harris. So he's not one to talk about foreign interference when he's been guilty of it on more than one occasion. Grant, let me just ask you, why do Americans, and I've been asking Americans this over the past couple of nights, why do you guys feel so passionate and emotional about what's happening in Great Britain?
Well, I mean, when you look at the history of Great Britain and you look at the history of freedom of where you started compared to where you are now and how young a nation, we're coming up on our 250th birthday, America is, how young a nation we are, and that we are now leaps and bounds in front of you when it comes to religious freedom, when it comes to the ability to pray, when it comes to freedom of speech, when it comes to the ability to carry firearms. Can you imagine if Henry Novak was able to carry one of those ceremonial knives that this Sikh Digwa was able to carry, just because they make a special class out of him, that Henry can't carry a piece of protection, whether it's a knife or a firearm? To me, it's very sad, and I think why we're taking notice of what happened in England is if it can happen there, we know how fast it can happen here in the United States. We saw our rights start to degrade under Joe Biden. We see them start to be restored under President Trump. But we don't want to go down the path of losing our rights. And I watch the citizens there on the streets of London to Southampton lose their rights in such a horrific way. And I'm watching, Ben, so many people who live there, be open to the idea of less freedom. And to me, I think they need to wake up, honestly, because once it's gone, very hard to get back.
Yeah, and actually, Grant, great point. I only really concluded and realised that we don't actually have, for example, free speech in the UK until I came here to live in America in September. I was like, oh yeah, of course, we have some version of free speech, but it's only when you experience real free speech under the First Amendment that you look back at Britain and think, oh no, we don't have free speech at all. Free speech with limits and conditions isn't free speech. 12,000 people a year getting banged up for social media posts, that's not free speech. Grant, what do you make of J.D. Vance's intervention tonight, basically saying his point is, and he kind of answers my question I just asked you, his point is we intervene and we speak out when we see what's happening in Great Britain because we love Britain, and more importantly, we want to preserve the fall of the West, which is what the State Department maps out in its national security strategy from November 2025. Do you see that as well? Not just Britain, but Europe and the West. Do you see the West under attack and under threat?
I do. And look, I think here in the United States, we're experiencing a Muslim invasion. Quite frankly, Muslims want to take over this country. They know if America falls, the entire world falls. This is not me talking. This is them talking. You only have to go and listen to what they're saying. You guys know this firsthand in Great Britain. Across Europe, open border policies. Very bad people had flooded in and now doing very bad things. And you get police officers that are more concerned about being accused of racism than they are about finding the facts, about getting to the bottom of what happened, about protecting the innocent. And then people die.
Yeah.
So yes, Great Britain, Europe in general, these were our greatest allies. And to watch, I almost believe it's hatred. You know better than me, Ben, but I almost believe it's hatred from so many in Europe, back at the United States, when quite frankly, we are the one shining light that is protecting this entire world from evil. And I feel like there's no gratitude, certainly not from Keir Starmer, that's for sure.
Yeah, we've heard President Trump talk about gratitude before, and JD Vance, but just in terms of who is behind the threat then? Who wants, in your opinion, the West to fall? You mentioned that you think it's a Muslim invasion, but some people watching this, maybe when it gets clipped up tomorrow, Grant, they'd say, well, first of all, Grant, you sound like a raging bigot and a racist, and they'd also probably say, well, look, they bring Muslims, for example, and multiculturalism. They'll say, well, it brings diversity, we get different cultures, and, you know, we're all living happily side by side. That would be their argument. And they'd say there's absolutely no chance of a Muslim takeover. So what is your response to that, those kind of critics?
Well, I would just tell you to go listen to their own words. I mean, I've played clips over and over again of imams here in the United States telling me that my children will be studying Islam in school, whether we like it or not. They tell us my children, our children, will be practicing Islam, whether we like it or not. And quite frankly, the liberal left that embraces all kinds of craziness like transgender mania and everything else like that, go to one of these Muslim countries, they'll throw you off a building. That's how much they hate you. They're so confused. Ben, I call it blind liberal zombieism. They want to accuse us of being racist instead of opening the eyes to reality, common sense, freedom, liberty. I don't care what religion you practice. Practice whatever religion you want, but just do not push it onto our children, onto our people, and do not use violence doing it. And that overwhelmingly I see coming from Islam, and I think it is a very dangerous movement, especially what's taking place here in the United States. And I see what has happened on the streets in big cities in your home country, cities like London.
Yeah, well, okay, Grant, great stuff. Look, whether it's Islam or Sikhs or whatever culture or country, the concern from the State Department is towards Britain, and they've written about this in their national security strategy. It is the erasure and the erosion of native cultures, i.e. in Britain, the erasure of British identity, social cohesion, the sort of pressure on public services through mass migration as well. So that's what the State Department say. That's what you think as well. Grant, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it, and thank you for being concerned about our great country as well, because it does seem like in recent days and weeks and months that the people who are shouting the most about our future is the Americans, the American government, Elon Musk, JD Vance, yourself. So thank you, Grant, appreciate it, and hopefully see you soon.
Well, Ben, thank you for being a reasonable voice, and GB News for being a voice of reason, and it's great being on. I appreciate it.
Cheers, Grant. Take care, mate. Grant Stinchfield there from Real America's Voice News. Let's get the thoughts of my panel here. Matthew Hertz, David Smith and Will Kingston in London. David, I'll come to you first. Just your take on what we heard from Grant there, and indeed just the wider conversation about American interference in the UK.
I mean, he lost me when he started giving an example of how Britain doesn't enjoy the same Second Amendment rights as America, which is a country that suffers so many school shootings and other mass shootings. So I think all of these things have to be seen in context.
Talk about guns, the Second Amendment.
The guns, yes, yeah. Exactly. I think and his notion of Britain and Western Europe sort of under invasion from Muslims, there's just no evidence for that. It's out of step with reality. What happened, obviously, with Henry Novak is a tragedy. I think it obviously raises huge questions over the conduct of the police. I would add to that, again, some context. Figures show black people 7 times more likely to die than white people after police restraint. Black children are 8 times more likely to be strip searched. We do need to scrutinise the police and not follow one example of something that happened here without looking at the broader picture. And one thing I'd say about J.D. Vance's intervention is no wonder that's unwelcome with Downing Street. I mean, it's very dangerous at any time for a foreign politician to intervene in British affairs, and this, I suspect, is Vance playing to the MAGA base, and again painting this picture of Western Europe somehow under threat, which kind of fits a broader narrative that Trump and MAGA have had. Do
you think Starmer's a bit of a hypocrite though? Because as I said, he was the one making George Floyd a martyr from the UK in 2020. He also Labour campaigners campaigned for Kamala in Pennsylvania in 2024. So he's not really one to talk about foreign interference.
I think that's a fair point. I think the George Floyd case was different in that it was a reflection of systemic racism, but even so, it's often unwise for politicians to comment on the internal affairs of other countries. It does tend to backfire on them. Okay,
Will, your thoughts of sitting there patiently?
Less and less patiently, because I'll pick up on what David said around the lack of evidence for a Muslim invasion of Europe and the United Kingdom. Now, of course, we can quibble about the word invasion. Some people think it is not politically correct. The reality is that the share of the population who are Muslim has increased dramatically in the last 2 decades. That is both primarily through legal migration as well as a smaller but arguably more dangerous percentage through illegal migration. And the result of that is that you have many, many people, not all by any stretch of the imagination, but many, many people who are hostile to Western values and hostile to the country that has given them an opportunity. So whether or not we call it an invasion or not, I think is almost beside the point. The fact is that the United Kingdom has let in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people now, many of them from Muslim countries who despise Western civilization, our history, our culture and our values. And I think that is what was very powerful from what J.D. Vance said, framing this not as a problem necessarily just for the United Kingdom, but a problem for Western civilization more generally. And that what's, having lived now in Australia, the US and the United Kingdom, my biggest reflection from that experience is that the challenges are consistent because they are civilizational challenges when we think about mass migration, multiculturalism, crises of cultural identity and general stagnation. So I think the way that Vance phrased it was very powerful.
Will make some excellent points, Ben. I think that what we've seen here is Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour government spending the better part of a week talking about how this shouldn't be politicized. Well, as I said earlier this week on this very show, these policies are political because they are decided by politicians. And the second layer of concern in Great Britain is that law enforcement has this extra layer of hate speech training, and where they immediately go out and think and believe, oh, this young white man, he must have been the aggressor in this instance because that was the call that came in. A country should control its borders, its language, and its culture. I've said that countless times on this program, and this is an instance where borders and culture are a situation or a concern. It's absolutely tragic, and it is 100% appropriate for global leaders to stand up for Western civilization in this way.
Do you think Keir Starmer's a bit of a hypocrite, Matthew? For the same points I put to David.
Well, you mentioned just a moment ago, Ben, that Labour politicians were in Pennsylvania campaigning for Kamala Harris. Sir Keir Starmer made a significant issue of the George Floyd instance in Minnesota a number of years ago. This is absolutely hypocritical for Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour government.
Okay, David, last word to you. Going forward, I guess this is the further deterioration of the so-called special relationship. We saw it exists actually. It's alive and well when the King came here. So this is just as opposed to calling it the special relationship, it's the relationship between this administration and Keir Starmer. Just give us your thoughts on that. Is it just completely over? It's gone, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I'll just quickly say, as we were talking, there was footage there of JD Vance kissing his wife, who's a Hindu, and America is a nation of immigrants as it marks its 250th anniversary. So let's remember.
But is it a nation of illegal immigrants? That's the point. I mean, JD Vance's wife is a legal migrant. I guess that's the big thing.
And Donald Trump's wife as well, of course, also a legal immigrant. But to your point, I think, the special relationship is in trouble right now, but it's actually good for Keir Starmer domestically because people like him pushing back against the Trump administration, and he certainly needs all the help he can get right now.
Yeah, okay. All right, viewers and listeners, gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts on that. We'll get stuck into those in just a second. But still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
I think what they mean by that is they let people drown in the water, and that is not a British way to deal with it. That is not commensurate with our values.
Well, I'm sorry to say, just when you thought this man couldn't get any more ridiculous, and we'll delve into his history in just a second, the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, sparks backlash with those very silly comments as he accuses Reform UK of being willing to let migrants die at sea. I've never heard them say that in my life. It's in none of their policy documents. Indeed, no party has sort of repeated that sort of rhetoric. A very silly man, I'm sorry to say. But first tonight, a very serious story. The mother of Rhiannon Sky White, who was killed by an illegal migrant monster, is urging President Trump to pressure Britain into action after claiming the government is now ignoring her and ignoring her pleas for new legislation to protect British people and to prevent what happened to her dear, beautiful daughter happening to anybody else. All the details coming next. Siobhan joins me live. Don't go anywhere on The Late Show Live.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
They put me out, and they have me saying, and you can't tell the difference, things that I never said.
Well, there's been a major development in President Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the BBC. All the details on that coming shortly. But first, the mother of Rhiannon Sky White, who was murdered by an illegal small boat migrant, is tonight appealing directly to President Trump and Elon Musk, claiming the British government has been ignoring her calls for justice. Siobhan White wants ministers to introduce Rhiannon's Law, which would, amongst other initiatives, see the tagging of illegal migrants living in hotels and HMOs and medical examinations to ascertain migrants' health status, as well as immediate vetting and criminal checks. And you have to say, you know, if these migrants are going to be free to roam the streets and do what they did to poor Rhiannon, then at the very least, we could put tags on them. Now, Siobhan, in a remarkable move, is turning to America for help, this side of the pond, hoping pressure from the Trump administration and Elon Musk can force Westminster and this government, the Labour government, Keir Starmer, to act. But with me now is Rhiannon's mother, Siobhan. Siobhan, great to see you. Thank you for joining us on the Late Show Live and GB News. Thank you for your courage, actually, and bravery as well in continuing to fight for your beautiful daughter since you lost her in those circumstances. Just explain what you're asking the government to do. And also, have you even heard from Keir Starmer? I know you've been asking to meet him recently.
Firstly, no, not a thing. I've even reached out to Shabana Mahmood. And what annoys me, Matt, is I've emailed these people numerous times and I haven't even got a response from it. What I want is answers as to why the scumbag who killed my daughter was denied asylum in Italy, denied asylum in Germany, was allowed to come to this country, and we had 15 months of fighting to get a bone density test, the constant lies, etc. And I'm still not being listened to.
So they've been ignoring you. How does it make you feel, Siobhan? You've lost Rhiannon. You've been dealing with that. You've been, you know, it's a massively traumatic situation. And the one set of people, the government, our political leaders who are meant to, you know, their first job is to protect the people of this country, they just outright ignore you. How does that leave you feeling, Siobhan?
Angry. I'm heartbroken, Ben, to be honest, because I feel like I'm not being listened to, and it feels like Rhiannon is just brushed under the carpet. And obviously this case with Henry Novak, absolutely heartbreaking, but because again, these two-tier policing, and I'm glad his family have met Starmer because that child deserved that, his family deserved that. But is it the case of because there was an illegal migrant involved in Rhiannon's case and many more cases, that they're not willing to reach out and listen and give me answers?
Yeah, if they're watching now, and maybe they will be watching this clip tomorrow, Siobhan, let's say Keir Starmer's watching right now, send a message to him. What do you want to say to our Prime Minister?
Do you know, just meet me. Just give me that respect. Give my child, my children and Rhiannon's little boy that respect, just to give me some answers. Because why was he denied asylum? And all this happening, and I'm reaching out to Starmer, and he's gallivanting off to America about the Epstein, the paedophile thing, and Prince Andrew, etc., and off to China. But what about the people of this country? What about me, who I'm just asking for answers for my daughter?
Do you feel like this government or Keir Starmer particularly cares about British people, Siobhan?
No. I don't believe for a second he does. And I think he was backed into a corner with the Henry Novak incident because, again, Rhiannon's name's not being mentioned. Wayne, Broadhurst, Lily, the White House, Katie Fox, Stephanie Irons, etc., etc. Not one of these people that have been murdered by migrants have been mentioned or spoken about by this government.
Siobhan, you're asking for not a lot, actually. You know, you're asking for a few minutes with the government, with the Prime Minister. But in terms of Rhiannon's Law, you're asking for the tagging of illegal migrants living in hotels and HMOs and curfews as well. Not a hard job. You want medical examinations and tests of illegals to ascertain their health status and identify any diseases being brought into the UK. Sounds like common sense to me. And also you want immediate vetting and criminal checks as soon as they arrive in the country. Indeed, Chris Philp wrote to the Prime Minister, Shabana Mahmood, saying that one of the Brighton Beach rapists was wanted for murder in his home country, and that would have been found out if they'd done simple background checks. Do you think President Trump, Elon Musk, how do you think America can help you in this situation, Siobhan?
Hopefully they'll give this government a shock, because I know it can be done. And I know these are two of the biggest main figures in America. Just try and get our country to... We're a joke. We're a laughing joke, this country is. Britain is a laughing joke. And, you know, I'm hoping that even if they reach out to me, I know somebody's listening. And again, it comes back to the Rihanna's law. We found out that Majek, who murdered my daughter, was untreated HIV. He only started getting treatment in January when he was in prison. How many more? How many more?
Really? So we're treating him for his HIV. So he came to the country illegally. He had HIV. He was free to roam the streets. And then he took your beautiful daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, and he stalked her.
What a disgusting set of circumstances.
Yeah. Exactly. And this is why I'm angry. And I'm angry because, sadly, Rihanna's not the first and she won't be the last. But this is what I'm trying, hopefully, fight and avoid, that it keeps happening, because it's heartbreaking. And I know Henry Novak, you know, it was a Sikh. I'm not condemning all Sikhs. I'm not condemning all Muslims, etc. That's irrelevant. It's not about politics or colour or creed. But these migrants, they're coming in their thousands. We don't know who they are, where they are, what illnesses they've got, etc. And they're still allowing them to come in. How many more women, men, children is this going to happen to?
Yeah, Siobhan, one is enough. One is enough. The loss of your beautiful daughter was enough, let alone the dozens. It's a national scandal. It's a betrayal. Yeah. It's treachery.
And this is what I said about Elon Musk and Donald Trump. If our own government, Starmer has literally just ignored me. He's not even responded to my emails. He's not even... Okay, we appreciate you emailing us, etc. Shabana Mahmood, not one single person has reached out to me.
Despicable.
And it's a case of, what do I do now? So if I can reach out to these two main figures in America, again, not about politics, colour, race, etc. I want help. I want answers.
Siobhan, we'll try our best to help you with that by speaking to us. You know, hopefully somebody sees it and we can help you out. Indeed, Chris Philp and the Tories are trying to help as well. Just finally, Siobhan, before I let you go, how are you? How are you really since?
I'm okay. I have good days. I have bad days. Obviously, we focus on Rihanna's little boy and Rihanna's siblings, etc. But 2 days after the verdict last year, we lost our mum through a broken heart. So I feel that there's 2 deaths that are on that government's hand, on Starmer's hands. And where is he? Nowhere. He's just ignoring us.
Siobhan, you're a brave and courageous lady. Thank you for speaking to us. And I'm praying for you. Our viewers and listeners are praying for you as well, and your family, and Rhiannon's little boy as well. So thank you, Siobhan. Appreciate it. And we'll try our best to help you out. Siobhan White there, mother of Rhiannon Sky White. A Home Office spokesperson has previously said the murder of Rhiannon White was an abhorrent crime and our thoughts are with her loved ones. This vile criminal is behind bars where he belongs and he has rightly received the strictest punishment of a life sentence. We share the public's anger about the broken asylum system and hotels. That's precisely why we're doing everything we can to keep dangerous offenders out of the country and close down hotels. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories here in America. Breaking news just in, the US Central Command says they've shot down 4 Iranian one-way attack drones that were launched towards the Strait of Hormuz, claiming the attack drones posed an immediate threat to regional maritime traffic. In other news, an American journalist who has been living and working in China for over a decade has pleaded guilty to working as an illegal agent for the People's Republic of China. And an American economy has created just over 170,000 jobs in May as pubs, bars and restaurants ramped ramped up hiring ahead of the much anticipated World Cup, which of course kicks off next week. And President Trump has said he would be willing to meet with Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei if ongoing negotiations between Washington and Tehran yield a deal. And finally, Madonna is reportedly in a secret talk for a UK show to celebrate her new album. That's after bringing New York to a standstill with a surprise gig. You're a fan of Madonna? Are you going to be keen to snap up some tickets? I think I'll probably miss that train. Still ahead on the Late Show Live tonight.
No one is illegal! Free the people! No one is illegal!
Goodness me, look at the state of them. Democrats are spending taxpayer cash to provide free lawyers for illegal migrants battling deportation. In New Jersey, where I was just a few days ago, it's all kicking off there. More details in a second. But first tonight, and on a similar note, the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, Keir Starmer's busy mate, he sparked backlash as he accuses Reform UK of being willing to let migrants die at sea. I don't know where he's got this from. We'll try and find out in a second. Don't go anywhere on The Late Show Live.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Those were the Pride celebrations Pride Month celebrations under President Biden. I think at one point he turned Easter Sunday at the White House into Transgender Day of Visibility. Anyway, tonight, Republican-led states are rebranding June as Nuclear Family Month. What do you think about that? Should we do the same in Britain? Lots of pushback to Pride this year. Elsewhere, though, coming up first, the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, has sparked outrage with these comments on the handling of illegal migration.
So what Reform and the Tories have to answer is, well, what would you do? You wouldn't be able to have deals with France and Germany because they are contingent upon being members of it.
Well, I tell you what they say they'd do. They say they'd round people up on the beaches and send them somewhere else.
Well, I think what they mean by that is they let people drown in the water, and that is not a British way to deal with it. That is not commensurate with our values.
Speaking to the BBC, Lord Hermer claimed the Tories and Reform UK would let migrants drown in the Channel through their plans to ditch human rights laws and deport all illegal arrivals, adding that the only way the government would end the small boats crisis was through international cooperation to crack down on people smugglers. With me now is former Immigration Minister Kevin Foster and former Solicitor General Robert Court. Good morning, chaps. Thanks for your company. Kevin, where is Lord... look, I don't know what Lord Hermer's been smoking or drinking, but where is he getting the perception that anybody would let migrants drown in the Channel?
Yeah, it's just the latest nonsense claim from Lord Hermer, who, let's be honest, his track record over the last couple of years of things like the Chagos deal, wanting to remove protections against prosecution from veterans of Northern Ireland, has just shown poor judgment at every stage. This is absolute nonsense he's talking about. The reasons, the law around rescuing people at sea is something that very few people would argue with. But tackling our illegal migration crisis is vital if we are going to stop people dying in the sea. 29 people were known to have drowned in the Channel last year attempting to reach the UK. As long as this goes on, as long as Lord Hermer's approach goes on, we're going to see more people drowning. So rather than throwing insults at Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage, perhaps he needs to look at what the outcomes of his own actions are.
OK. Robert, your take on proceedings?
Kevin's absolutely right. What Lord Hermer's doing is deliberately conflating two completely different things, one of which is the law of life at sea, and the other is the European Convention on Human Rights. The ECHR has nothing to do whatsoever with saving people's lives at sea. The ECHR deals with what happens to them once their lives have been saved. In other words, are they able to stay forever or not? And what he's effectively doing is attempting to delegitimise people who criticise the ECHR, because then, of course, he doesn't have to deal with their very trenchant arguments. When you have people like Lord Sumption, who was as erudite and intellectual a commentator as exists, saying that what the ECHR does is bypass the democratic process and takes away control of immigration policy to the ECHR, then Lord Hermer really does have a major problem, and it simply means that he's seeking to avoid actually taking on what is one of the biggest issues of our time.
Yeah, it sounds like a cop-out. Kevin, was it not Hermer as well who maybe last year suggested that anybody who wanted to leave the ECHR was akin to Nazi Germany?
Yeah, he's made a range of stupid comments, which have basically just cost the Labour Party votes. And I think one of the reasons why Keir Starmer's leadership is in desperate trouble of the Labour Party is almost certainly there'll be plenty of Labour MPs renewing their calls, probably when speaking to their whip this week, that, any reshuffle needs to see Lord Hermer going out the door. And not just for this, we said poor judgment on Chagos, poor judgment on things like Northern Ireland veterans, all of which many Labour MPs will just see as creating noise that doesn't really deliver any great objectives. What it does do is lose more votes and push more people towards voting for reform, particularly traditional patriotic centre-left voters in parts of the Red Wall. So now it just strikes me that this bloke is completely out of touch. As Robert's touched on, there's plenty of lawyers questioning the role of the ECHR, and actually including some of Lord Hermer's colleagues in government, particularly the Home Secretary around things like Article 3 and Article 8 interpretations, particularly after cases like the infamous now chicken nuggets case. So he is out of touch with what most people are thinking. He's not exactly delivering in his own role. And I suspect the one thing we can say is that most Reformed and Conservative supporters can take some satisfaction that I cannot see this man still being Attorney General this time next year.
OK, interesting. Robert, last word to you, and maybe you can educate me a bit. Is it unprecedented for an Attorney General to sort of wade into politics so much as this? Because I don't remember, for example, I don't know, Sir Michael Ellis or previous AGs getting involved. Is this a Hermer thing?
It's very unusual for a law officer to get involved in political judgment, because their whole point of their existence is that they are there to give advice on the law to the government of the day, and normally they stay out of the media. But what we certainly do see here, as Kevin has rightly touched upon, is that Lord Hermer possesses an extremely poor sense of political judgment, and we've seen another good example of this here. At the end of the day, we all know there's a problem with the ECHR. Even the Labour government knows there's a problem with the ECHR. That's why they had that Moldova declaration looking to get the Council of Europe to amend it, that they announced only about 10 days ago. Now, it won't work because it's a non-binding political declaration, and the whole point about the ECHR is that it is a court that evolves the law according to its own political worldview at any one time. And that ultimately is why we now have to leave. So it is utterly daft that Lord Hermer has said something that is not only politically out of touch, but is actually out of touch with what his own government thinks.
Yeah, well, they say judge a man, Keir Starmer, by the company he keeps and his friends. Lord Hermer just seems to be one of the most anti-British, let alone Attorney Generals, just most anti-British people going today. And do you know what? If he's so keen on illegal migrants coming across the channel and thinks that it's down to British people to welcome them in with open arms and pay for them and so on, Lord Hermer, and this is a fact, has a £3-4 million home in North London. I've seen it. Lovely house. He's also got a £1.5 million plot of land in West Sussex near me, which I think, judging by planning in recent years, he's now built on. So let's say he's got £4 or £5 million worth of property. There's a holiday home in West Sussex, by the way. He lives in London with his family. Why don't you open up your home? Why don't you lead by example, Lord Hermer, and take in some illegal migrants in your house? And then maybe the rest of the plebs, me and the viewers back home, you, Kevin and Robert, maybe then we could follow his example by taking some illegals in. What do you reckon, Kevin? Good idea?
Yeah, spot on, Ben. You know, it's amazing how often those who want to vote for open borders then object very strongly to having the consequences of that in their local area, as we saw with the deputy leader of the Green Party, not just Lord Hermer. So no, you're absolutely right. Lord Hermer, you know, is speaking for a cosseted class of the metropolitan elite who agree with his worldview. The vast majority of people, and let's be clear, the vast majority of Labour voters will just think the man's a buffoon who should be fired.
All right. On that bombshell, Kevin, thank you very much. Robert, appreciate it as well. Thank you. Come back on the show soon. I'll say again, Lord Hermer, if you're watching tomorrow, you've got a swanky, beautiful £2-3 million pad near me in West Sussex. It's a holiday home. You don't live there. Lead by example. Be the bastion of morality that you say you are, and you expect everybody else who's struggling, by the way, who doesn't have the kind of money you do or the kind of access to land and assets as you do, open up your house, Lord Hermer, and tell us how many illegal migrants, how many men from the third world you've taken in. Let me know as well. gbnews.com/your say, Lord Hermer. A spokesman for the Attorney General has said the AG repeatedly argues that this government has a steely determination to tackle illegal migration, and this is not in tension with upholding our human rights obligations. The Attorney also makes clear how his concern on some of the hard right are using dehumanising rhetoric about migrants, and that this is not the British way. As I said, the British way is take them into your home and lead by example. I'll wait with bated breath. Still ahead on the Late Show Live tonight.
They put me out and they have me saying, and you can't tell the difference, things that I never said.
Big development in President Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the BBC. All the details in a second, but first tonight.
We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Well, the Bank of England has cancelled, axed Winston Churchill. They claim he's too elitist and too divisive. What do you make of that? Back in a second. Don't go anywhere.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Coming up, just what exactly went wrong on the International Space Station today. Absolute drama. It's been a problem that NASA has known about for decades, apparently. We'll discuss that shortly. But first, let's delve into some of the main stories on the front pages, starting with The Telegraph, which is reporting the Bank of England decided to drop the likes of Winston Churchill and Jane Austen and Alan Turing from banknotes after research said historical figures were elitist and divisive. New banknotes will instead feature images of wildlife. OK, wildlife is fine, but, you know, why drop Churchill? He's not divisive. Let's get thoughts on my panel, David, Matthew and Will. Will, before you answer that, you wanted to have a quick word on Herma before you get stuck into the banknotes.
I need to get it off my chest.
Jane's here as well. Hello, Jane.
Hi, Ben.
I need to get it off my chest quickly, Ben. We just heard from the courageous Siobhan White, whose daughter was murdered as a consequence of the weak border policies of this government, and yet Lord Herma has the temerity to suggest that they are somehow the humanitarian ones. It is the policies of this government and the previous Conservative government that is the policies that lead to people dying, both at sea, because more people turn up, and then when they enter this country and women and children are put at risk. But the other thing that I would say, Ben, is that this is the government that has been lecturing us about hatred and division for the last week and how we need to come together, but at the same time they're very happy, erroneously saying that one political party, and indirectly their supporters by supporting them, are happy seeing migrants drown at sea. It goes to show that this faux morality is just that. It is all a facade in order to try and escape attention from accountability on issues like illegal migration and on issues like Tier 2 policing, two-tier policing.
Yeah, well, he's just lying as well, because no party, Reform, or anybody else has said they'll let migrants die at sea. So he's a lying clown. You know, come at me, I don't care. Jane, your take on the banknotes? Churchill's been axed, the Bank of England.
I mean, how depressing. And on the drowning at sea thing, I have to get a word in, because people, as long as people are making the journey, people will drown. So the way to stop anybody dying is to stop the reward for making the crossing in the first place. If no one's successful in staying in the UK, they won't get on the boats, nobody will die. On the banknotes, it's just ridiculous. I mean, Savanta did a market research piece to see how people felt about Churchill and Jane Austen. I have no idea where they did their market research, perhaps in Islington at a dinner party or perhaps at the Green Party conference. But it is absolutely ridiculous. To say Jane Austen is controversial is completely ridiculous.
I know, what a joke.
Crazy.
Let's put Lord Hermer on the new £5 note, David. David, the Bank of England says, so this research says that Jane Austen, Alan Turing, Churchill were contentious and not representative of the UK's cultural and natural diversity. It says it represents a backward-looking vision of the UK that carries too great a risk of division and controversy. Even David, your great self representing The Guardian, even you must think this is woke nonsense.
Yes, I do, actually. I'm with you on this one. Obviously, I'm very aware of Winston Churchill's flaws, and he's very unpopular in parts of the world. He's obviously also a heroic leader in the Second World War and just such an important historical figure. I think it's fair to have him on a banknote. In terms of diversity, I mean, Jane Austen was a woman, Alan Turing was gay.
Good point.
Let's add some more faces from recent British history that are perhaps more diverse as well. Maybe now David Attenborough, aged 100, qualifies for a banknote, but I think more interesting to delve into the history, let kids learn from that, rather than some, I'm sure, beautiful but quite bland nature photos.
Yeah, well said. Great points about Turing as well. Austen, of course, being a woman. Matthew, I love nature. I love nature. I love nothing more than being in nature. You know, some long grass in a field, whatever. So put them on the notes as well, but you don't have to cancel Churchill to do that.
Well, look, if we're talking about nature, let's add David Attenborough to a banknote. You know, one of the things about
They'd probably say he's too white and old, crusted. They would.
Well, one of the things about culture, and in the United States, we've put our presidents, former presidents, on the banknotes, and this is something I think, particularly as it pertains to the history element of this, it is so important for young children in the school system to learn about our history. So why not keep these historic figures and tell all sides of history, but to remove Winston Churchill, to remove Jane Austen or Alan Turing, it's absolutely ridiculous.
There has, of course, been a proposal to put Donald Trump on a $250 note in America, which may be a bridge too far.
I'll pump the brakes on that, David, today.
I'd buy one. I'd frame it just for the sort of novelty aspects of it. Will, who's on the Aussie banknotes?
Well, the Queen, of course. I don't know if I haven't been back in Australia since the King came to the throne, but I don't know if they've got new notes for the King. And then they have a series of other Australian, notable Australian figures in history. I think that this is, of course, the way that it should be. I echo the thoughts of the rest of the panel. As someone who has Winston Churchill as the screensaver on my phone, I find this incredibly difficult to stomach.
Yeah. Jane, just last word to you. As far as I remember, Churchill only came on to the £5 note in maybe, was it the last 10 years with the new plastic notes? So he's not even been around on the notes for that long.
No, and I remember it's not been long since Alan Turing was on there, and the point of putting Alan Turing on was, going down, recognising someone who was not only just gay, he was treated appallingly by the state and prosecuted and chemically castrated for being gay. He had an absolutely miserable time as someone that had contributed so much to our war effort and science and all sorts of things. So a brilliant man. So Alan Turing's not been there very long. Winston Churchill, he's been regularly voted greatest Briton of all time. It just seems utterly silly. And it will alienate so many people. I really think they only asked people in North London. It's the only explanation.
Yeah, there's some very funny comments on your say, which actually I can't read out, but I'm laughing at them privately anyway. Narrow Boat Girl said, changing the banknotes is just a ploy. They'll withdraw the others so you can't have cash hidden under your mattress. Yeah, I mean, protect cash at all costs. What else? Sod it, just change our currencies to the Israeli dollar. Okay, yeah, it's the Jews again. And Andrew said, at least the new banknotes will have HMRC LB GTQA plus HMRC BBC on their serial note. Very good. Right, keep those comments coming in. gbnews.com/your say. Right, more. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Jane. More coming up in the next hour on The Late Show Live, including this.
They put me out, and they have me saying, and you can't tell the difference, things that I never said.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
Oh no, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Live from Washington, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. He should still be alive. Vice President J.D. Vance directly blames Britain's migration policies for the murder of Henry Novak as Downing Street hits out at his intervention. Host of Stinchfield Tonight at Real America's Voice News, Grant Stinchfield, he joined me earlier.
I think it's a wake-up call for America. I see what's going on in Great Britain, and Ben, it breaks my heart for your nation to watch this liberal lunacy, this diversity, equity, and inclusion, these racial identity politics literally get people killed. It saddens me.
Elsewhere, did you see this previously? A heartbreaking appeal to America just now on the show from the mother of Rhiannon Skye White, who was killed by an illegal migrant. She's urging President Trump to pressure Britain into action after claiming the government is completely ignoring her. It's despicable. She joined me earlier.
Starmer has literally just ignored me. He's not even responded to my emails. He's not even, okay, we appreciate you emailing us, etc. Shabana Mahmood, not one single person has reached out to me.
Despicable.
And it's a case of, what do I do now?
Where is the Beeb on a fishing expedition because President Trump's lawyers refused to hand over financial documents in their blockbuster $10 billion lawsuit against the BBC?
Put me out, and they have me saying, and you can't tell the difference, things that I never said.
And millions for migrants. Democrats here in America are spending taxpayer cash to provide free lawyers for illegals battling deportation.
No one is illegal! Free the people! No one is illegal!
Space station nightmare. Astronauts were ordered into emergency lifeboats after an air leak aboard the International Space Station. Scary stuff. What went wrong? Could it have been sorted out quicker? I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning, hope you're well and you've had a good Friday. Yes, it is Saturday today in the UK. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me in DC is my panel, Republican strategist Matthew Hurt and Washington Bureau Chief at The Guardian, David Smith. And in London, former Conservative MP Jane Stevenson and GB News superstar Will Kingston. Hello you two, thank you for your company. We'll catch up with you in just a sec. Right, GB News alert. President Trump's legal team has launched a blistering attack on the BBC, accusing the corporation of carrying out a fishing expedition in its $10 billion defamation battle with the president. President Trump's lawyers have rejected demands from the BBC to hand over his financial records as part of the explosive lawsuit. And the case centres on a documentary, of course, broadcast just before the 2024 election here in America, which spliced together remarks made by Trump in a misleading way. Now, Trump's team says the BBC isn't interested in journalism or facts, but in actually digging through the president's finances to damage him politically. They're calling it nothing better than a fishing expedition and getting it thrown out. Joining me is my panel, Matthew Hurt and David Smith, and in London, Jane Stevenson and Will Kingston. Matthew, what do you know about this? The BBC, they're in discovery at the moment. There's a big trial set for February next year in Miami. Hopefully I'm there. I'd love to be in Miami in February. But this latest development about the Beeb on a fishing expedition. Your thoughts?
Well, the BBC has withdrawn the video, and so that is in and of itself an admission of wrongdoing in this instance to splice up these comments by President Trump. They also argue that he was not in fact defamed because he won the 2024 election. You can still have been publicly defamed by an outlet like BBC and still win an election. So there's quite a few holes in this. I suspect, and I think President Trump is right in saying that this is a fishing expedition. This is more than 100 businesses they want the financial documents for. It's really a curious way, and I mean it's a great argument for the BBC to make in the court, but it's a curious way to go after President Trump.
Yeah, David, President Trump is saying, well, sorry, the BBC is saying you can't have been defamed because you went and won the election a few months later. So how does that work? But the Trump team is saying, well, no, you harmed my businesses, you hurt my reputation financially. So the Beeb is saying, all right then, President Trump, show us your finances for all your businesses and the trusts.
Yeah, and I think that's fair of them to do that because is there really any evidence that Trump's businesses were affected by this, by, let's face it, a program that was shown in the UK and not available in the US? I suspect the American audience for this was vanishingly small, and it's therefore pretty hard to believe that it hurt Donald Trump financially, and certainly the election seems to be evidence that it did not hurt him politically in the end. In some ways, I think the BBC are playing Donald Trump at his own game here. He's sued many media outlets like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, sometimes with little hope of victory, but he's just trying to throw sand in the gears and tie them up in court for ages and make their lives miserable. So the BBC kind of fighting fire with fire. And let's also remember out this case, Trump has falsely claimed that the BBC used AI AI, artificial intelligence, in these clips, and that is not true.
Yeah, I don't know why the president keeps saying that. Maybe he's not across the details of the case, Matthew. Why does he keep saying it's AI instead of just an editing thing?
It is a great question. I do think that you've got somebody at President Trump's age who hears something and it gets sort of stuck in the wheels and he makes an argument about it. So.
Yeah. Will Kingston, do you think the Beeb are gambling with this lawsuit? Why didn't they just settle? Because that's what Trump had done previously. He sued, was it CBS and ABC? Both settled for around $16 million. CBS accused of doing something similar, actually, with Kamala Harris. I think it was CBS. With the Kamala Harris interview, they settled for $16 million. Why didn't the BBC, instead of embarking on this lengthy court process, which could end up costing them a lot of money, and by the way, where's that money coming from? Is it license fee payers? Why didn't they just settle?
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. It's not their money, Ben. But at the same time, if I'm going to give them some credit, I think David is right. I think on the balance of probabilities, it's probably not defamatory. And also when it comes to this particular fishing expedition, this is all part of the games that happen when you have a court case. However, I am happy to see President Trump actually taking action against the BBC if it means that the culture within that organisation changes. In the United Kingdom, in the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about institutional social justice in so many of the establishment institutions in this country. The police is one of those, but the BBC is certainly another. And that institutional social justice mentality and the DEI agenda that goes along with it has meant that you get the sort of reporting where they are not trying to report impartially, but they are trying to push a particular narrative. And someone like Donald Trump gets in the way of that narrative. So whilst the actual case itself may or may not be successful, if this leads in some way to cultural change at the BBC, then I think that's a good thing.
Jane, your take? Did they defame the president?
Well, I was disappointed when this happened because the BBC were clearly in the wrong. It was obvious they'd spliced together. It was the worst splicing of two sentences. It was extremely misleading. And they issued, it took them, I think, 3 or 4 days to issue any form of apology. But I just wish they realised the mistake had been made. They should have immediately held their hands up, wholeheartedly apologised. Even the apology was a bit mealy-mouthed and started anticipating legal arguments on things rather than just holding their hands up and admitting they made a really serious error. And I think President Trump may have reacted a little more favourably to a proper apology issued very quickly.
Well, I think the BBC chairman, what's the guy's name? Is it Shah? Did write to the president apologising and so on. But the Beeb's argument is, and I've seen the court documents, they're basically saying, look, it wasn't shown in the United States. You can't have been possibly defamed in the jurisdiction of Florida. But Trump's team are saying, well, hang on a minute. First of all, you filmed some of the documentary in Florida, some of the episode of Panorama in Florida. You were at Mar-a-Lago with producers making this film. They said that it was redistributed to a production company in Canada, which licensed the Panorama episode to North American TV. They claimed that you could watch it on iPlayer with a VPN and so on and so on. So that's the weeds of the argument. Let's get the thoughts of Lee Cohen, who is down the line, former advisor to US House of Representatives on British affairs. Lee, hello, my friend. What's your take on this latest update, the latest skirmish in the Miami court between Trump and the Beeb?
Good evening, Ben, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. In all respect to you, I haven't talked to you since that incident where you faced down and kept your cool with that guy, that angry guy. All respect to you, man. Indeed.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The BBC clearly picked the wrong guy to trifle with. For decades now, this taxpayer-funded broadcaster has presented itself as a pillar of journalistic integrity, yet its record shows a consistent pattern of distorting reality to fit its own worldview. And whether covering Brexit, COVID, Israel grooming gangs, or most recently, misquoting Nigel Farage during an interview about the despicable murder of Henry Novak, the BBC has too often... I'm sorry?
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I said they had to apologise for that.
Indeed they did. just as they apologized for what they did to President Trump. But this court case concerning the handling of President Trump's January 6th speech is another unconscionable example of this kind of behavior. Let's not forget Trump is the victim here. The BBC took two separate parts of his remarks, nearly an hour apart, and edited them in a way that suggested he was inciting violence while leaving out the calls for peace. The BBC itself has admitted the edit created the wrong impression and issued an apology. Yet an apology alone, Ben, is not sufficient. This behavior once again exposes a taxpayer-funded state echo chamber. And in the current legal proceedings, the BBC is now demanding access to vast amounts of President Trump's private financial information. I have to ask, what reasonable person would hand over that level of sensitive data to a foreign broadcaster with the BBC's egregious track record and judgment? President Trump's legal team is right to push back. President Trump's reputation matters not just to him, but to the entire world. Consider what's going on with the negotiations with Iran. Releasing his intimate financial data to the untrustworthy BBC is unimaginable. And finally, everyone who abhors the license fee because the state broadcaster doesn't reflect their worldview should cheer President Trump's pursuit of the Beeb, just as they might cheer his and his colleagues' efforts to expose labor's mad destruction of your nation.
Lee, just finally, very quickly, if you'd be obliged, is it un-British to say, some people on your say are saying, I hope Trump successfully sues the BBC and they lose the case. Critics, some of the left of the persuasion would say, well, that's very un-British because the BBC is a great British institution. Maybe licence fee payers will be the ones who are paying that cost in the end. Is it un-British to want Trump to win this case?
It is absolutely not. So many Brits that I know are let down by the BBC and feel that it should be defunded, and they're so resentful of having to pay those license fees because not only does it distort reality, it doesn't represent their worldview. And as the state broadcaster, to have that broadcaster be at odds with one's worldview and having to fund it just adds insult to injury. So no, indeed, I do not think that's anti-British.
Okay, good stuff. Lee, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Really enjoyed your column as well on the GB News website a bit earlier tonight. Good read. Thank you, Lee Cohen.
Thank you.
Right, on the issue of the BBC splicing up a clip of President Trump, the broadcaster said it sincerely regrets the manner in which the video clip was edited, but added that they strongly disagree there is a basis for a defamation claim. gbnews.com/your say. There was one comment from Chris. Hello, Chris. Good morning. You said, I really hope that, if successful... Oh, it's gone. Where has it gone? Come on. It's because there's so many comments coming in. I really hope that if successful with the case against the BBC, which is fully deserved, Trump donates any of the proceeds to a British charity such as Help the Heroes, or finds a way to legally donate it to Nigel Farage's election campaign. I mean, the first idea may happen. The second idea, good. I think Lord Herman and Keir Starmer will be having something to say about that. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Keep those coming in. And Rob has said, here's a question. Who was the actual person who modified the video of Trump? Who was the editor? I think it was a freelancer, Rob, as far as I remember. I don't think it was even a direct BBC employee. It was from a production company. And John said, do you remember when Panorama tried to set up Tommy Robinson? It was John somebody. Yes, I do remember that. And Robert said, hello, Robert, go Trump, take them to the cleaners as we need the swamp drained from the BBC. And Charlie said, Ben, if Trump lost the case with the Beeb, does that mean a more expensive TV licence? Well, good question, Charlie. That is the question that the BBC refuses to answer. They have refused to say in Freedom of Information request to, I think it was the Sun newspaper, whether they are insured for this type of thing or who is funding their legal team, basically. Is it coming from licence fee coffers? Right, keep those comments coming in. Still ahead, though, for the time being on The Late Show Live. Those those were Pride Month celebrations under President Biden at the White House, but tonight Republican-led states are rebranding Pride Month in June as Nuclear Family Month. Do you think we should do that in Britain, or is it a bit, I don't know, is it bigoted? Some people saying it's bigoted. But also, still ahead tonight, what exactly went wrong on the International Space Station today? And has it been a problem that NASA has known about for decades? If you're not up to speed with this, basically, big emergency scare on the space station, there was an air leak. All the details on that and the current situation coming next. Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live.
No one is illegal! Free the people! No one is illegal!
Well, those are some of the scenes emerging out of New Jersey as anti-immigration enforcement protesters clash with law enforcement. It coincides with the US Senate, get this, approving, finally, a $70 billion funding package for immigration enforcement in a major victory for one of President Trump's signature agendas. After days of Republican infighting, the bill in the Senate passed by 52 votes to 37. This means ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE will be funded throughout the rest of President Trump's term in office, 3 or so years. It will now head to the House, where Republican leaders hope to send the bill to the Oval Office on President Trump's desk, awaiting his signature. So that needs to happen still. But the bolstering of Trump's immigration policy comes as New Jersey's Democrat governor announces her state will put millions of taxpayer money into a legal fund that could aid in protecting illegal migrants from deportation. Governor Mickey Sherrill took to social media to tout a $12 million increase in funding for the Detention Deportation Defense Initiative. I mean, is that a thing? Matthew Hurt? Or that sounds like a charity or an NGO.
You know, Ben, what happens in these left-wing states is your tax dollars are used to fund these kinds of operations. And so it is no surprise in a place like California or New Jersey that taxpayer dollars are being used in a situation like this. There are plenty of organizations, the American Civil Liberties Union and others, that could use donations from people who willingly give to provide this kind of legal aid to individuals. It is not the job of taxpayers to pay for this kind of
So what is that thing, that organization, the Detention Deportation Defense Initiative? Have you heard of that, David?
I think it may be a new thing in New Jersey for this particular case,
Right.
and my suspicion of what's happened here is that Mickey Sherrill, recently elected Democratic governor, has been taking a lot of political flack from Democrats and people on the left over these protests at this detention center, which, by the way, have an important cause in terms of bad conditions and people going on hunger strike and labour strike. We saw these protests erupt outside, some heavy-handed policing, and Mickey Sherrill facing a lot of questions from Democrats. We elected you, why are you not doing more to step in here? And I suspect that's motivated her to take this action, which clearly in some quarters is seen as just going too far.
Yeah, well, as I said, she has now introduced this $12 million of taxpayer aid for this initiative to help migrants beat deportation, I guess. Very strange. Well, joining me down the line on this is Republican commentator Tora Brooke. Tora, good to see you. What do you make of what we've seen outside New Jersey, this detention centre near Newark? I had my own sort of funny experience a few days ago, but just really your thoughts on the last 10, 11 days in New Jersey, and indeed this latest initiative to help illegals avoid deportation.
Well, historically, some of these people who have come in to protest the illegals being deported have been sent in by people like George Soros. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's definitely paid protesters who are involved here. But New Jersey taxpayer money, especially those who didn't even want this governor to begin with, shouldn't be used to fight these deportations, right? If someone in the country is there unlawfully, the state government should not be spending public funds that could be helping veterans, roads, school systems to help these illegals remain in this country. So the deportation process in general is the consequence of their violating the immigration laws, and it's not something that the taxpayer should be handling themselves.
Okay. In terms of the kind of scenes we've seen outside the deportation centre in New Jersey, the administration now very close to getting this very important funding for ICE to continue operations for the next 3 years or so under Trump's remainder of his term. Big win for Trump and the administration?
I think so. I mean, I think this is one of the goals. You know, we saw what was going on in Minnesota and all the fraud that was uncovered through some of the illegal immigration that was happening. And I think we're about to see more of that occur in California and New Jersey. I mean, we've got J.D. Vance on the committee or the Commission for Uncovering Fraud. And I would love to see the vindication here for the New Jersey residents.
Yeah, indeed. And what was the Democrats' issue with this bill for the funding? What was their problem? What were they asking for?
I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know what they were asking for, but the Democrats across the board have been against anything that involves our legal deportation of people who were here illegally. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we want our money to be going towards the citizens of the United States. And the Democrats are just challenging anything that President Trump or his administration puts forward because they're trying to make it more difficult. And it's really unfortunate because the Democrats themselves are suffering from this as well. I mean, we're seeing how much aid is being allocated towards illegals being in this country. And it's time that ends. And I think that starts with the Trump administration and the small wins that we're getting right now.
Okay, great stuff. Toria, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on. Please come back when you're free and, yeah, enjoy your weekend. That's Toria Brooke.
Thank you.
Let's go to London. Let's get the thoughts of Jane and Will. Will, your take on this. Good news, I guess, for the Trump administration that they are close to finally getting this bill through. But the Democrats, $12 million to this initiative to help them stop being deported, basically. Why don't the Democrats, why don't people of the left of the argument want illegals deported? What is it? I don't get it.
Because they're an open border party, Ben, and they're an open border party because, much like the rest of the left across Western countries, they don't believe in the nation state. They believe in open borders, and that means basically that they are very comfortable fighting against this, which I think, you know, despite the fact that, you know, the United States has a complicated relationship between the states and the federal executive, this still to me feels like it is spitting in the faces of people who voted in Donald Trump because he would be strong on illegal immigration. The lesson for the United Kingdom here, Ben, is that this policy area is primarily about political will as opposed to political skill. If you put the resources behind it, if you are willing to tolerate being called racist from the left, if you dedicate yourselves to actually having a strong border, as Trump has shown, you can solve that problem. Now, on deportations, he hasn't moved as quickly as he probably would have liked, but this is still the level of commitment that you would have seen, and people like Nigel Farage and Kemi Badenoch and Rupert Lowe need to take note.
Well, interesting points. Jane, if and when, well, whoever wins the next general election in the UK, whether it be the Tories or Reform, whoever, what lessons can they learn from what they've seen here in the United States since January 25, particularly with ICE, with deportations and with protesters? What are the big lessons, you think, the takeaways?
Well, I think watching from the UK, my mind went back to under President Obama, and I don't remember the left having these sort of protests. 3 million people were deported under President Obama, and I can't remember seeing the scenes like this. But because it's Donald Trump, you get this whole level of anger and protest. But I think whoever wins in the UK next time, if they're going to get a grip on illegal migration, there are going to have to be some really tough and very radical solutions offered, and the left are going to not like it one bit. And that's why I don't think Labour has any hope of securing our borders, because those Labour backbenchers will not vote to remove human rights as they currently stand. And if we do end up with a Reform or a Conservative government next time who have said they will go big on securing the borders, finally coming out the ECHR, hopefully looking at the 51 Refugee Convention and actually knowing who is in the country and if they're leaving. There are so many things that are so wrong and that desperately need updating, but the left will lose their minds over it. They hate it. They hate any crackdown on this.
Yeah, I think they will. It's going to be an interesting couple of years for Reform. Well, as I said, Reform. I say Reform because they're leading the polls now, but it could be anybody. Will.
It certainly could be, and this is a separate but related point that you raised, Ben, and that is that at the moment, Reform, if the polls were to be replicated in a general election, would not be able to form a majority in their own right. You are seeing increasing levels of vitriol between a fragmented right in the United Kingdom across Reform, the Conservatives, and a emerging Restore party. I am on the right-wing side of politics, Ben, so I'm a pragmatist. I'm not a left-winger. I don't believe in Fantasyland, so I don't believe that...
you were a commie, Will.
Well, if you live in London for too long, mate, this sort of thing can eventually rub off on you. But the problem that we have is that I know that the egos involved means that probably you'll never see a great coming together on the right in the UK, but at the very least they need to start thinking more tactically about how they actually maintain electoral viability, because at the moment that's a really big concern, particularly if you have some Frankenstein coalition on the left of the Lib Dems, the Greens and Labor.
Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, you're going to get lefty protesters, all the Marxists down at deportation centres. But actually, by the way, you may get protests from whoever, if it comes to it, you're in coalition with. Will the Tories be willing to go as far as, say, Reform UK on mass deportations? That's probably where you'll get much of the friction. Guys, thank you very much. Let's get the thoughts of friend of the show, political commentator Thomas Corbett Dillon. Thomas, hello, good to see you again in the Late Show Live studio. We're talking about, of course, the New Jersey ICE detention facility. Not sure if you saw, viewers and listeners, maybe you didn't see. Let's just remind ourselves very quickly of the clientele you get down there outside the facility. Let's take a look at my visit there from last week. Well, I think you're probably a nice guy, get down, and outside this, we probably get on down at the pub or something.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you. What you want to do? You want to kick for them? You want to kick up for them? Kick.
Want to what, sorry?
You want to kick up for them? I think you got to go.
You
out here kicking up for them. I think you got to go.
No, I'm staying here. I'm not going to be intimidated by violent people.
Oh, you mean like because you came here with guns yesterday?
I'm not scared of you.
You mean intimidated by like guns yesterday?
You can square up to me and get
So
violent.
why do you hold you if you're not afraid of him?
Why would I be?
You're definitely less afraid of me.
I'm a human being here to have a conversation.
Are you a human being? You're not.
So $12 million to help illegals, I guess somehow. I would argue, Thomas, at some point, those paid for protesters will probably end up getting some of the money as well. Just what's your take on this kind of like just crazy nonsense you're seeing at these ICE detention centres?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, these are paid people. It's like looking at that guy, it's like, why does he care? Like, is he really a political, like, does he breathe politics, or is he being paid to be there? And he's probably being paid to be there, which is a very common thing that happens in this country. And, you know, and they're just like acting extremely violent. It's like, this is not the way to present your argument if you're trying to win people. And for some reason, the Democrats have got, you know, everyone always jokes about this Trump derangement syndrome. They're kind of falling into this trap with the legal immigration as well. They are fixated on this issue. But if you talk to people in DC, particularly the Democratic strategists, they're realizing that this is not a winning issue. You know, most people in this country agree that if you're an illegal person in this country, you should be deported. That's pretty standard. Everyone kind of agrees on that. But for some reason, the Democrats are obsessed with this issue. And I think a lot of people in DC, and particularly when they're looking at the federal elections, are trying to move away from that. But the state, you know, this governor is a new governor. She's trying to make a name for herself. And I think it's a big mistake.
What do you make of the bill that is close to being passed? It's going to the House next. It's cleared the Senate, then potentially on President Trump's desk. Funding for ICE for the next 3 years and DHS as well. Good thing, good win for the administration?
Of course. I mean, they need it to be funded. But of course, the Democrats have been blocking it at every step of the way, because anything that the president does, they're going to stand against, because that's just how it works here. That's like what they do. But it's going to get through. It has to get through. And you know, again, it is not a winning issue. The people in this country are struggling. The gas is at $5, and you know, there's a lot of other issues that people want them to talk about. But Democrats are fixated on defending these illegal people. It's a very strange fixation. Again, I think it's part of the Trump derangement. They love these illegals.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, I think you ask anybody in the administration, or even people who have left, like Greg Bovino and so on, they'd say we haven't deported as many as we wanted.
Yeah,
definitely far fewer than, say, Obama up until this point of the administration. So it's not even as if they're going on some mad scheme that's never been seen before, and everything's outrageous, and there's millions and millions going. It's quite humble numbers, really.
It is, and I think actually a lot of Republicans are disappointed in that. You know, they were for a while using very aggressive tactics tactics. We saw that in various cities around the country, but they pulled that back. You know, Kristi Noem got pushed out of leading DHS because they thought she was being too aggressive. A lot of Republicans are a bit disappointed. You know, he ran on mass deportations, and we haven't really seen them. So that's, again, it's a question for looking at England. You know, I see a lot of parties talking about mass deportations. When it comes down to it, are they going to follow through? So,
well, what's your take on that? So whoever it wins the next general election and they want to do mass deportations, what can they learn from what we've seen here?
I say good luck to them. I don't think they're gonna have. I mean, if you can't do it here, good luck doing it in England, because here you can actually. They're a lot more aggressive here. They can do it. England is just, it will be tied up in courts. I mean, we couldn't even, the plane to go take people to Rwanda couldn't even take off in England. You know, so I think good luck to reform. I think they're going to have a big task, because it also comes down to the people that are in government. It's not just the politician. We have to start looking at the civil servants, the people that are in these departments that have been there for years. They're very establishment people. There's no way that Nigel Farage is going to become Prime Minister and they're going to say, okay, we've got to do all of these deportations. They're going to stop it at every step of the way. So it's going to be tough for them to follow through.
Oh, you came in looking so summery and upbeat, and now you've left me a bit depressed, thinking that, you know, if reform ever get in, or the Tories, whoever, I don't care who it is, if you just, like, it could be the Greens, if you promise to embark on mass deportations, great, I'll give you my vote. But it's a bit depressing, really, to think that, yeah, if they can't do it here, in the land of the free and the brave, what chance are you going to have in the UK?
Yeah, good luck in England.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else to share with us? Any gossip on the streets of DC? What have you been up to?
Well, I mean, just this Henry story has just been huge here.
Yeah, tell us about
massive.
it. Tell the viewers why it's cut through here.
It's probably one of the biggest British stories we've had. You know, and obviously it's a huge story and it deserves to be a huge story, but the Americans are so passionate about England. And I think we're such a lucky country that we have the world's greatest superpower cares about us. They don't care about any other nation the same way. They don't care about France or Italy, whatever's going on there, but they really care about England. And I think it's good for the British people, because look at what America is doing as a massive nation. And I always like to remind English people that if you look on paper, that the people of Mississippi are richer than the average person in England. And, you know, think of Mississippi, it's sort of, you know, they'd call it a hillbilly type area. England is a disaster. We are being run by idiots for so long, and this country is really, you know, in its golden age right now. Everything is exploding, everything's going up, and England is being left behind. And I think, once again, we have to look, it's not just the politicians, it's the establishment in that country, it's the civil servants, it's everything, it's the media. And for some reason, England is just crumbling. And at the same time as it crumbling, we're having a police state where they're arresting everyone. It's like, fine, if you want to have a police state, but at least give us jobs and money and make the country great. We've got both. It's a terrible country right now, and it's a police state. So, I mean, we're really lucky that America actually cares about us. And you know, thank you to the Vice President for speaking up, and the State Department. I mean, special relationship. I don't know.
Yeah,
not much anymore.
The Vice President has been so consistent on it, even way back to the Munich Security Conference. He's been saying the same thing. It's in the National Security Strategy from November 25. This isn't new, so I don't know why people in Britain who are angry about it are surprised. And by the way, Keir Starmer also got involved. He made a martyr of George Floyd in 2020. He sent Labour campaigners to campaign for Kamala Harris. It's like, you know, what are you complaining about? You're a hypocrite. Thomas, thanks so much.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. Thomas Quebec-Dillon. Let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories here in America. Breaking tonight, the US Central Command says they've shot down 4 Iranian one-way attack drones that were launched toward the Strait of Hormuz. They claim the attack drones pose an immediate threat to regional maritime traffic. In other news, an American journalist who had been living and working in China for over a decade has pleaded guilty to working as an illegal agent, or I guess that's a spy to you and me, for the People's Republic of China. And the American economy has created just over 170,000 jobs in May as pubs, bars and restaurants ramped up hiring ahead of the World Cup, which of course kicks off next week. GBNews will be there for Scotland against Haiti, clash of the Titans next week before England's game against Croatia in Dallas, so stay tuned for that. And elsewhere, President Trump has said he'll be willing to meet with Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei if ongoing negotiations between Washington and Tehran do eventually yield a deal. And finally, Madonna is reportedly in secret talks for a UK show to celebrate her new album after bringing New York to a standstill with a surprise gig. Right, still ahead. President Trump is pushing for sweeping cuts and mass firings across America's intelligence agencies. Did you know, by the way, there are dozens of agencies, literally dozens, as he threatens to oust Obama loyalists. Talk about the deep state, eh? But also still ahead, just what did go wrong on the International Space Station today? Massive drama in space above Earth. And has it been a problem that NASA potentially has known about for decades? All that and more after the break. Let's get a very quick look at your weather. Don't go anywhere.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. An unseasonably windy day to come for southern areas, heavy rain and thunderstorms as well this afternoon, but it should turn a little bit drier from the west this evening. But for the time being, this area of low pressure brings some very strong winds to parts of southwest England and the south coast later on this afternoon. And heavy rain will push north and eastwards through this afternoon to bring many of us a pretty unsettled and damp day. There's a risk of thundery downpours as well across more northwestern areas, parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England into this afternoon. Temperatures will be a little bit below average, very close to where they have been already this week. Into this evening, it does turn drier from the west, so some brighter skies to come across more western areas, but across the north remaining quite cloudy. Temperatures around 12 to 13 degrees, so a bit disappointing for the time of year. There will be some brighter spells between showers, but again, there's that risk of thundery downpours as we head into parts of northwest England, so do take care if you're travelling out and about. There may be some water on the roads. Quite a lot of clouds still lingering around this area of low pressure, but there will be some brighter skies across the southwest just for a time. We've got a ridge of high pressure between systems, so a brief lull in the wet and windy weather to come tonight, but still quite a lot of cloud pushing in from the west through the early hours of Sunday. So I think clearer skies for more eastern areas by Sunday morning, cloudier and a little bit wetter in the west, some light drizzle, but it's going to be a pretty mild night, a mild start to Sunday with southwesterly winds. The winds strengthen again around the next area of low pressure, this time up to the north and west. That sweeps in, bringing heavy bursts of rain to parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland through Sunday. But across more eastern areas of England, eastern Scotland, it should be a much drier and perhaps a bit of a sunnier day as well. So temperatures will climb into the 20s for the first time in a little while. So feeling a little bit more pleasant with calmer winds in the east.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Rainbow flags, drag queens, all sorts of stuff. No, not at my birthday party last week. No. This was the White House celebrations under Joe Biden. But now Republican states are launching a full-scale cultural counterattack by turning June into Nuclear Family Month instead of Pride Month. Is it time for Britain to do the same, or is it, as some people suggest, a little bit bigoted? That's coming up shortly. But first, during attempts to fix a worsening air leak, 5 astronauts were forced to take shelter and prepare for a possible evacuation from the International Space Station. Dramatic events taking place above Earth. NASA's Mission Control directed the crew to take refuge in their docked spacecraft in case they needed to make a quick escape, as Russian crew members carried out repairs on a transfer tunnel. NASA later reversed that instruction around 2 hours later and told astronauts they could return to their station. Roscosmos revealed that its experts had initially found 2 leaks aboard the International Space Station, but there was no immediate threat to the crew. Right, to unpick this now is Greg Autry, presidential appointee and the co-author of Red Moon Rising. Greg, great to see you again. Thank you for coming back. Okay, what happened? Was it dangerous? Was it a false alarm, or was it just something that was minor and fixed?
Yeah, there's a real problem with the older Russian modules. The Zvezda module and the attached transition module here are the oldest parts of the International Space Station. They were originally designed to build another Mir space station and then converted to the ISS program when America brought the Russians on board back during the short period of time when the Russians were sane. But the stuff is old, cranky, and Russia has done a really bad job at maintaining their entire space program, including this section.
Oh, well, that's interesting to hear, Greg. How long have they been slacking on the maintenance front? Is it since they invaded Ukraine and maybe their sort of attention and economy focused elsewhere?
Even before that, Putin appointed Dmitry Rogozin, one of his little corrupt puppets, to run Roscosmos into the ground for many years, and they've done nothing except try to suck money out of the program the best that they can, rather than reinvesting in it or developing new technologies. It's been sad to see, actually.
So what can we do? I was going to say we as in the Brits, but we're not on the ISS at the moment. What can the Americans do? Isn't it 3 American astronauts, a French, and then a Russian cosmonaut? Is that the makeup, if I'm not wrong?
Yeah, and it varies. Generally, there are more Americans than anybody. Usually there's a European or a Japanese, perhaps, and then a couple or 3 Russians. The Russians are having problems.
Why don't you just put the Russians off if they're not pulling their weight?
There you go. They blew up their Soyuz pad, so they can't even really necessarily get to the station when they need to, which is a problem. But the reason you can't get rid of them is some of their core elements are required, and their progress modules required for reboosting the station's orbit occasionally. We could get around that. NASA is developing a deorbit system for the station, which could be a booster. It's based on a SpaceX Dragon capsule. So we could do that, and we could disconnect those Russian modules at some point and put in better US and European hardware.
Interesting. Does this put the future, finally, Greg, the future of the ISS into question? Is it all old and knackered, or is it just the Russian parts that need some TLC? And really, is the ISS, maybe educate me, because I don't know, is the ISS as much use these days as it used to be? Do we need it anymore?
It's actually very valuable right now for doing microgravity manufacturing experiments, which have huge promise to deliver value to Earth in better semiconductors, fiber optic cables, and some pharmaceutical and biomed miracles that might change our lives. That said, we should be moving on to commercial space stations as quick as possible. The station can be extended. A lot of parts of it are pretty new, like the solar panels. Other parts of it are pretty old. But, like any old house, you can always make it better if you put money and time into it.
Yeah, well, if they need a helping hand, I don't know who to ask, but they can send me up there. I'd happily go up and try and help them out and experience space for the first time. Any contacts, Greg, that I can get hold of? Yeah, good man. Thank you. Tell the president.
Yeah, I'll mention that.
Thank you, mate. Greg, thank you so much. Always love having you on. Fascinating, full of expertise and wisdom. So thank you so much, Greg Autry there. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. David, Matthew, Jane and Will. There we go. I'm proud that I remember that. Will, your take? The Russians not pulling their weight. Lazy so-and-sos, not coughing up the money. The parts of the ISS that they run are knackered. Just kick them off. I know Greg says we can't, but do it anyway.
Ben, I agree wholeheartedly. I was whispering to Jane, I really hope Ben doesn't come to me here because this is one of the topics I have very little to add, but I'm very happy to do a bit of Russian bashing for the next 20 to 25 seconds. It does sound like very much that they aren't pulling their weight. I've always found it quite curious that you do have a Russian-America alliance around the International Space Station. I agree wholeheartedly with what you have to say. If they're not going to keep up the repairs of this, then I say the US goes it alone.
Yeah, it was I think it's 2 US astronauts, Jane, and there's a French up there as well. I'm not sure what part Britain has to play. I'll try and find out. But yeah, your take on this story today, Jane?
I think it's terrifying. If you think of the astronauts up there, it is an old station now, and this maintenance, it's not like you can pop it down the local garage and get a bit fixed. It's incredibly difficult to maintain. And the other thing that really scares me is the amount of space junk flying around. And you hear how easily bits can get damaged if there's a collision in space. And we're not sort of retrieving as much of this space junk as we probably should be. So I think it must feel quite precarious, but astronauts seem to take it in their stride. Oh yeah, we'll just go into a different bit of the station and start again. I would be absolutely terrified. It is not something I fancy being an astronaut. I'll let you go, Ben, instead.
Yeah, thank you. Tim Peake, I just Googled it. Tim Peake was the last British astronaut to visit the ISS in 2015. He spent 186 days on board, David. I think actually I went to a Tim Peake talk at Brighton Dome. Was it Tim Peake? Yeah, it must have been. Your thoughts, David, on this story?
Of course, we also recently had the Blue Origin rocket exploding on takeoff. It's all a little bit anticlimactic and dispiriting after the success of the Artemis 2 moon mission. And reminder, this is difficult stuff. But on the diplomatic point, I remember Bill Nelson, the former administrator of NASA, would always say that during the Cold War between America and the Soviet Union, space was this one area where the two countries still cooperated even at the worst times. And so I think there is a diplomatic function here, and there's perhaps something encouraging about the US and Russia and other countries still working in the ISS, at least for now.
Yeah, that's interesting. So basically, I mean, without sounding woke, but space missions, space adventure is beyond borders. Is that what you're saying, David?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It should transcend that, and as we've discussed on this show before, we've recently had sort of files disclosed about potential UFO encounters. There's always that sort of theory that if we did encounter alien life, that might be something that unites humanity and make us realise that those borders are very artificial, as Carl Sagan famously discussed in his pale blue dot little monologue.
I love that picture. Was it Apollo 8? The pale? No, not Apollo 8. That was Earthrise. Yeah, the famous pale blue dot picture. It's a pixel of Earth. It's from Voyager, isn't it? It's the furthest probe in the universe. Anyway, so I'm boring everybody. Matthew?
Ben, I love when you have Greg on. I learned so much about space. This space station has been in space for nearly 30 years. And what we've seen in this time, and one of the things that Greg mentioned, is the commercialization of space. So we have a tremendous opportunity with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and other for-profit enterprises to explore space. So that's the next step in space exploration.
Would you go up, Matthew?
It depends. Are we getting moon bases or Mars bases with Elon Musk? Perhaps.
Really? With David, would you go?
Oh yes, definitely. Remember the end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Richard Dreyfuss sort of goes off the UFO to who knows where. It's too exciting an adventure not to go, really.
I've got to ask you two in London. Will, would you go? Then Jane, would you go?
Yeah, I'd go, and interestingly, that my mind went to the commercialisation of space as well, and we'll see how much this space wokery endures when different countries start fighting over the rare earth minerals on the moon and Mars. I suggest the Beyond Borders thing will go down the drain pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I don't want to go anywhere in space. Thanks, Ben. I'm happy on Earth.
Yeah, I'd rather go to space than diving. Like diving in the caves in the Maldives where those poor people lost their lives. These deep sea divers who go diving into really perilous dark caves, just meters underwater. I'd rather get launched off to the moon. I think it's probably safer. Anyway, what do I know? Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight. Is it time to scrap Pride Month and replace it with Nuclear Family Month? Because that's what some Republicans are pushing for here in America. Back in just a sec. Don't go anywhere. Right, papers time. Let's start with the Daily Mail tomorrow, which is reporting that Britain's flagship £3.5 billion aircraft carrier has broken down again as ministers wrangle over boosting defence funding. So the HMS Prince of Wales, which has been absolutely plagued by problems since entering service, it was forced into port in Norway for repairs, which delayed her departure for the celebrations marking the 250th anniversary of the United States Declaration of Independence, America's birthday, basically. Again, Will, I'm sorry to say, I love her. Brenda from Bristol. Another one? Oh, no, Will's not there. $3.5 billion, David. £3.5 billion, sorry, repairs to this aircraft carrier. What's going on with our great Royal Navy?
Yeah, so don't send them to fix the ISS, clearly. But, it's disappointing. And we're sitting here in Washington, of course, not so long ago, Donald Trump was disparaging the British Navy and...
well, Hegseth said the big bad Royal Navy, he joked.
Right, yeah, and sadly this will give them some more ammunition. Probably needs to be some sort of investigation what went wrong here. It's not a great look, and sort of just furthers that image of a Britain that is a little bit dilapidated and run down and failing to invest in certain areas.
Yeah. Matthew, it says a senior naval source has told the Daily Mail that morale is devastatingly low as a result of this.
I'm not surprised at all, but I'm sincerely disappointed. I think obviously the history of the British Royal Navy is serious, but I want our trading partners, our military partners, to be as strong as they can be, and I think that's one of the things that Secretary of State Marco Rubio mentioned a few months ago when he was in Europe talking about Europe's greatness and how great it could be. And so I want to see a British Royal Navy and British Armed Forces and in fact Western European armed forces to be as strong as they can be.
It says here in the story, viewers, listeners, it comes as Keir Starmer faces mounting pressure to publish a delayed review into boosting defence spending, which is due next week. But rows with the Treasury over money could force another postponement after years of delays. Jane in London, military chief Sir Richard Knighton warned on Thursday of the need to enhance our defensive capabilities as Russia was raising the stakes and risk crossing the line. So the Russians, although they're slacking space, they risk raising the stakes, says Sir Richard Knighton.
I think so many, I was one of the MPs, there's a really valuable scheme MPs can take part in, and you go and spend time with the armed forces. And I think if you did that course, you were aware how much spending needs to be coming forward, and we're still waiting for Labour to actually give us some figures and actually give us a plan of how they're going to increase military spending. But it clearly needs to expand significantly, and I was calling for it when I was in Parliament, and I will continue to call for it. It is such a good career route for young people. It fosters a sense of pride and discipline and all of those things. We desperately need a proper plan. Keir Starmer keeps promising one, and it still isn't here. It was being promised again this week. But I think when you see an aircraft carrier again breaking down, and you know we've had a tragedy with a helicopter crash this week that we're waiting to hear. You know, just dreadful tragedies. So I think the armed forces does feel a very sensitive topic, and we're on the anniversary of D-Day now, so it feels especially poignant to talk about our military.
Yeah, well said, Jane. We also lost a Lance Corporal in Iraq on a training exercise a few days ago. Lance Corporal James Stewart Freeman, he was 29 of the Royal Anglian Regiment. Then we had the Merlin helicopter, where, funnily enough, I don't know how, I've spoken to various friends and acquaintances who knew people on board. They've lost their friends. I had somebody in the studio last night saying one of my mates perished in that crash. It's really harrowing. And Keir Starmer on LBC, David, on Thursday said the long-delayed Defence Investment Plan, Defence Investment Plan, DIP, will finally be published next month, and he revealed British intelligence believes Russia could attack NATO by the end of the decade.
Yeah, I mean, the stakes are very high, and Putin's reign in Russia, especially the second Ukraine invasion 2 or 3 years ago, has really concentrated minds, as has, of course, Donald Trump's policy, where not a particularly enthusiastic supporter of Ukraine. He's berated NATO on various occasions. I think a lot of European leaders are forming contingency sort of plan B for what happens if something like a Russian attack takes place and America is not there to step in. So I think that is the kind of pressure that Keir Starmer is feeling, but obviously at a moment when there are so many other demands on the economy, it is a tough spot right now. But that Russian threat does seem very real.
Matthew, just 30 seconds. What's the latest on Russia-Ukraine? We don't hear much from Trump anymore about it.
You don't hear much out of President Trump or out of Congress. I haven't seen headlines lately about what's going on, but I do think that it is incredibly important for our European allies and partners to invest in their military to stave off a potential encroachment into Europe by Russia.
He said he'd stop it within 24 hours. Remember?
Well, we've won the Iran war several times too, Ben. So.
Yeah. Right. I am off. Will Kingston's going to be taking over. I just want to say thank you, Matthew, for your company tonight. Thank you, David, as well. Jane, thank you. Viewers and listeners as well, thank you so much. Do not go anywhere. The show's not over. I'm just rushing to the airport because I'm thankfully going home for a little break. But Thank you for your loyalty tonight and over the past, well, it's been 2 weeks pretty much. I've been non-stop. The White House shooting, the ICE incident, and here in the studio with you. I've loved your company. Thank you so much. Will, what's up in the next hour? What have you got for our viewers and listeners?
Well, Ben, I believe a first in British television history, a coup against a host mid-show. It's just unfortunate that you're on the receiving end of it. I'll be taking the team through some cracking stories. We've been flagging that rebrand of Pride Month to Nuclear Family Month. I'll be asking the team, is this just identity politics fighting identity politics? Also, you have Trump clearing house with the intelligence services, perhaps some lessons for the United Kingdom there. That is all still to come in the final hour of The Late Show Live.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. An unseasonably windy day to come for southern areas, heavy rain and thunderstorms as well this afternoon, but it should turn a little bit drier from the west this evening. But for the time being, this area of low pressure brings some very strong winds to parts of southwest England and the south coast later on this afternoon. And heavy rain will push north and eastwards through this afternoon to bring many of us a pretty unsettled and damp day. There's a risk of thundery downpours as well across more northwestern areas, parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England into this afternoon. Temperatures will be a little bit below average, very close to where they have been already this week. Into this evening, it does turn drier from the west, so some brighter skies to come across more western areas, but across the north remaining quite cloudy. Temperatures around 12 to 13 degrees, so a bit disappointing for the time of year. There will be some brighter spells between showers, but again, there's that risk of thundery downpours as we head into parts of northwest England, so do take care if you're travelling out and about. There may be some water on the roads. Quite a lot of clouds still lingering around this area of low pressure, but there will be some brighter skies across the southwest just for a time. We've got a ridge of high pressure between systems, so a brief lull in the wet and windy weather to come tonight, but still quite a lot of cloud pushing in from the west through the early hours of Sunday. So I think clearer skies for more eastern areas by Sunday morning, cloudier and a little bit wetter in the west, some light drizzle, but it's going to be a pretty mild night, a mild start to Sunday with southwesterly winds. The winds strengthen again around the next area of low pressure, this time up to the north and west. That sweeps in, bringing heavy bursts of rain to parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland through Sunday. But across more eastern areas of England, eastern Scotland, it should be a much drier and perhaps a bit of a sunnier day as well. So temperatures will climb into the 20s for the first time in a little while. So feeling a little bit more pleasant with calmer winds in the east.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray,
are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again
to start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Good morning, Britain. Good evening, America. Hello, wherever you're watching around the world. We are live from London, England. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Well, he should still be alive. That's the words of Vice President JD Vance, who directly blames Britain's migration policies for the murder of Henry Novak as Downing Street hits out at his intervention. The host of Stinchfield Tonight at Real America's Voice News, Grant Stinchfield, joined the show earlier.
I think it's a wake-up call for America. I see what's going on in Great Britain, and Ben, it breaks my heart for your nation to watch this liberal lunacy, this diversity, equity, and inclusion, these racial identity politics literally get people killed. It saddens me.
Elsewhere, an extraordinary interview with Ben and the courageous Rhiannon White, or the courageous mother of Rhiannon White, who was killed by an illegal migrant. She's urging President Trump to pressure Britain into action after claiming the government is ignoring her. She joined the show earlier.
Starmer has literally just ignored me. He's not even responded to my emails. He's not even, okay, we appreciate you emailing us, etc. Shabana Mahmood, not one single person has reached out to me.
Despicable.
And it's a case of, what do I do now?
Hit the nail on the head, despicable. Elsewhere, the Rainbow Divide, Republican-led states are rebranding June as Nuclear Family Month in a growing backlash to Pride celebrations, including this from the previous Biden White House. UFC is coming to the White House. I think I prefer that. Elsewhere, the deep state purge. Donald Trump pushes for sweeping cuts and mass firings across America's intelligence agencies as he threatens to oust Obama loyalists. I'm Will Kingston, and this is The Late Show Live. Welcome to The Late Show Live with me, Will Kingston, in what I believe is a first in British television history, a mid-show coup against a sitting host. I've dispatched of Ben Leo, and now I am enjoying the power that comes with the hosting chair. But I'm joined again by former London Conservative MP in London, Jane Stevenson, and in Washington, Republican strategist Matthew Hurt, and Washington Bureau Chief at The Guardian, David Smith. Thank you, one and all, for staying with me into the wee hours of the morning. Let's start with a GB News alert. Is it time for Britain to follow the states of Indiana and Tennessee? Because Republican-led states across America are now openly rebelling against Pride Month. Instead, governors in states like Tennessee, Indiana and Arkansas are rebranding June as Nuclear Family Month, Strong Families Month and even Fidelity Month. So, should June be about pride or about the nuclear family? With me now is political strategist and podcast host Tiffany Marie Brannan, and journalist, broadcaster, and my old sparring partner, Jonathan Liss. Thank you both for taking the time. Tiffany, I'll start with you. Look, don't get me wrong, I'm all for the nuclear family, but some people would argue that this is trying to fight identity politics with more identity politics. Surely the answer would be just dispatching of Pride Month and saying, you know what, however you want to live your life, go live your life.
I mean, you have a really good point, because I find it offensive in any kind of way. Last time I checked, personally speaking, pride is a sin. And not only that, but, you know, the LGBTQ population here in America only represents 9% of the American population. 1.6 of that identifies as gay, and about 1.3 of that identifies as lesbian. So we're really talking about a full month of celebrating sexual preferences. And last time I checked, like Christmas and Easter and Memorial Day and Veterans Day, they only got a day. So I think that it is very dangerous to, again, dabble in identity politics. But more importantly, we should be taking pride in being Americans first and foremost, and being proud of being patriotic, and not about our sexual preferences or lifestyle choices. And I think that there is a necessary pushback with this content, considering like nuclear family and fidelity and promoting marriage, because the nuclear family is the foundation of a thriving society and has been the nuclear foundation of Western civilization. So that's not going to change.
Jonathan, your response?
Can I just ask Tiffany quickly, because I just want to make sure I understood her correctly. Did you say that pride was a sin?
Yeah, I mean, it's considered a cardinal sin. That's not a Christian ideology. You go back to any great philosopher. Pride is considered a sin, a vice.
Oh, sorry,
not a virtue.
sorry. Okay. Oh, right. Sorry. What I meant is,
And Jonathan, I want to let you know, like,
I didn't know.
Yeah,
Sorry, I just
I
want
come from a musical theater background.
Gay pride specifically.
Just so you understand, I come from a musical theater entertainment background. My sister was a pageant girl. I have so many gay friends that I love.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Tiffany, look.
Yeah,
Tiffany, look. You know
just
that
to be clear.
All right, good. That's all I want to know. Honestly, that's all I want to know. You know that we have a lot of bust-ups. I wanted to make sure that we were on the right track, and we weren't going to have a conversation about Leviticus or about whether being gay was a sin or anything, because trust me, if you think being gay is a sin, are you on the wrong channel? Because literally everyone who works here is a gay man. Apart from Will, though the jury is out on him as well.
The jury is out.
So look, when it comes to pride, okay. Obviously, yes, you can talk about pride being one of the 7 deadly sins. It's a bit of a red herring. Pride is a really important moment because obviously when it started in Stonewall in 1970, 69, and sort of spread around Western Europe, and then increasing into Eastern Europe, it became sort of like a landmark event for people to fight for hard-won rights. Those rights were not given to people; they were fought for. It's very, I think, a lot of small L liberals and indeed small C conservatives, they kind of just say, oh, yeah, well, everyone's equal now. Yeah, they're equal because people went on marches and they got beaten up by the police. That's how they won those rights. No rights are ever given by people who have power. They are fought for tooth and nail. And the thing is, people now say, of course, gay people have all the rights they want. Well, first of all, that's not true. And it's not true in large parts of the world. So pride is also about solidarity with people fighting. It's also true that homophobic violence is rising in Britain and elsewhere. So the idea that I'm free to hold a man's hand in public without any fear at all is simply not true. And that's another reason why we need to have these events where we sort of fight for our right to be visible and to live the lives that we find meaningful and that we choose. And also, as we know, I'm sure that we would all sure that you two would disagree with me on this, is that the T in the LGBT, those rights are being completely rolled back in Britain and in America as well. And so obviously pride, the vast majority of gay and lesbian people support trans rights, and they're also fighting for those as well. So I'm not entirely sure what we're arguing about here. If it's about whether we should have pride for a day or a month, fine, we can have that conversation. But really what this is about is Republican states rolling back very deliberately hard-won rights. And these are canaries in the coal mine, as far as I'm concerned. Because
Jonathan, to frame the conversation, that isn't exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about
that was the article. Well, that was literally the headline that you talked about, Will, when you talked about sort of whether we should rebrand Pride, that is what a number of Republican governors are proposing to do. And I think it's insidious, not because we shouldn't celebrate the nuclear family or anything like that. Of course, we can celebrate families. And gay people, by the way, can have families as well.
I understand. Tiffany, can I get your response on two things? Number one, the symbolism of basically pulling back Pride as a month and putting in the nuclear family month. And number two, your response to Jonathan's point on Republican governors attacking gay rights.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that it's important to highlight the nuclear family because we're living in a postmodern culture that is actively destroying it. You see that coming from the waves of feminism. You see that from the breakdown of the modern family in most cultures now, unfortunately. And it is, we know statistically that a child that is raised without a mother and father has a minimum 80% chance higher of never graduating secondary school, of never going to uni, of ending up in poverty, of being physically, sexually, mentally, or emotionally abused, of potentially going to jail, of having lower literacy rates. So celebrating the nuclear family isn't just about celebrating a preference of lifestyle, it's about celebrating the foundation and the fundamental elements of what makes a society function.
But Tiffany, I think the question is, why do you have to do that at the expense of Pride Month, would be the response.
Well, because there's nothing equal to it. Pride Month has taken over. You have to understand that in America, when you're walking around the cities during June, you're saturated in it to the point where children are being basically educated against their parents' will so young before they should even know what sex is or any kind of sexual education. They are being indoctrinated, educated.
Come on.
Let me just finish 1 second, Jonathan. Because I will say, and I can say that from living in Los Angeles for so long, from being in New York all the time, that I cannot even repeat the things I have seen on the street with people without clothes on, people with sexual perverting things in child's faces with their genitalia hanging out. So that is sort of a response to that of a more wholesome childhood, I believe, and really understanding that these kids are walking around these cities during June being completely saturated in stuff that they're too young to frankly even be having a conversation about.
Jonathan, this is a question I do want to ask of you, in that there are parts of Pride which, again, I'm tired over the course of the month, but, by and large, it's inoffensive. But parts of Pride marches where you see the more extreme fetishy type stuff and you see blokes in leather walking down the street, would point to, or some people would argue, would point to a moral degeneracy which should not be placed in front of children. How do you respond to that element of Pride Month?
I don't think there's anything degenerate about wearing rubber or leather, Will. I'm sorry. People are not having sex in the street during Pride marches.
They're naked. They're naked.
Well, children see naked people all the time. I saw my parents naked, and honestly, I really think this is a moral panic. And I don't believe that you're being entirely ingenuous about this. If that's even the word, the opposite of disingenuous. The point is that Pride Month is not a parade every single day, as you know perfectly well. It's having a few flags up on government buildings, on municipal buildings. It's maybe having a few public events where people might sort of talk about issues pertaining to LGBT people. Then there is, there might be a couple of public events. The majority of the people there are going to be celebrating, having a party. Yeah, they might be wearing, outfits that you probably wearing more clothes than you find on Venice Beach, I have to say. A lot of kids you'll find on Venice Beach and sort of Santa Monica, Muscle Beach also in LA. LA's a very gay place.
Men are being walked as dogs.
That's actually an interesting point. How do you respond to that, Tiffany?
I mean, I don't own a bikini for that reason. I'm kidding. But I actually don't. But what I'll say is that, I think across the board, we should be more protective of our children. I think that we live in a society where the average 11-year-old boy, 94% of 11-year-olds have been exposed to hardcore pornography. We know what stuff like this does to young child's brain. We know the evil effect it has.
I'm sorry? Can't you understand? Look, the point you were making before about sort of nuclear families, about parents growing up, I find it really disingenuous, because actually what children need is love, and they need loving parents. So I kind of find it slightly insidious that you seem to be positing a nuclear healthy family with kids who have much better sort of outcomes in life with a gay family. This is kind of like the rhetoric we had in the 70s, where kind of gay people were perverted and children they might have were facing moral degeneracy from the moment they were born. That simply isn't borne out by, certainly not by any morality that I know of, and not by actual facts and statistics either.
Can I ask a question on that point? Tiffany, do you think gay people should be allowed to adopt children?
I think we're dealing with issues of lack of checks and balances here. So in the US, we've been dealing with several really serious cases recently in the news. I'm not sure you've read about them, but where we're having surrogates. Often there's been about 4 gay couples that have been caught sexually abusing the child that they've adopted through surrogacy. 2 of the babies have died from being raped to death. And there's just been a lot of lack of checks and balances where we're having issues where pedophiles are getting, it's basically trafficking children through surrogacy. The surrogacy laws, especially in states like California, have like gigantic loopholes. So it's the same problem I'd say we have with there's a Chinese families that have now been caught, a Chinese billionaire actually, who has now had over 100 children, over 60 of which I believe have American citizenship. So it's more of an issue with surrogacy and that adoption process than, you know, coming from a sexual preference. I believe in monogamy. I believe in a traditional family marriage. I'm a Christian. That's my worldview. Again, I have many gay friends that are married, many gay friends that, you know, are wonderful parents and that kind of thing. But I do think that across the board, you're talking about a much larger issue that is far more complicated when it comes to policy and the safety of babies and children that are being raised unsupervised without a mother in the home.
Jonathan?
I mean, gay people have far more checks and balances than any 2 people who might hook up in a bar and have a baby. Of course, that's not to say that gay people can't be terrible parents and can't be abusive. Gay people, like all people, are human beings. Some of them are really, really bad people. I don't think we should throw the baby out of the bathwater and say that because there are a couple of horrific cases that somehow all gay people should be tarred with the same brush. That's the same argument that said that gay people were paedophiles and shouldn't be allowed to teach in schools in the 1970s and 80s. The kind of atmosphere that even I was growing up with in the 90s, that kind of tarred all gay people with the brush of a couple of despicable outliers. I'm sure that's not what you'd want to have, Tiffany, given that you have so many gay friends.
No, and Jonathan, I will say, you know, there's a very prominent speaker here in the US. She was raised by 2 lesbian parents, and she specifically speaks out on this. And she speaks on how she desperately wishes she did have a father growing up. And we do know, again, scientifically and sociologically, that there is a need, a natural need for every child to have that maternal and the paternal instinct in their home.
Well, can I ask
Jonathan,
just quickly?
You'd rather have 2 parents than 1 parent, 2 parents who loved you than 1 parent who loved you.
Jonathan,
Most people would agree with that.
I agree with you on that. At the same time, and I agree that I think gay people should be allowed to adopt. At the same time, in a perfect world, I think that the best case scenario is having a mother and a father. Now, that's not to say that 2 fathers or 2 mothers can't be loving parents, and it's not also to say that you can't have a mother and a father who will be awful parents. But would you agree, in an ideal scenario, a mother and a father is best for a child, 2 loving parents is best for a child?
I'd agree that in an ideal world, a child will have 2 loving parents who will nurture that child and make them a healthy and fulfilled member of society. The idea that it has to be, basically the corollary of what you're saying is that in an ideal world, we'd all be heterosexual, that somehow that homosexuality is a kind of deviance. I know you're not saying it in so many words, but in this ideal world scenario, I'm thinking, well, why is it an ideal scenario, but there always be a man and woman scenario in this instance? I think that if you talk to people who grew up in single parent families, you talk to people who grew up in abusive families, what they say is not that, oh, I wish I'd had a mother and a father. It's just I wish I'd had 2 parents who actually knew how to love me.
Tiffany?
And I agree with you, but we do know that the scientific and sociological evidence, the research is profound, and it keep coming out with more and more studies on this, where a child, the best case scenario for a child to be a fully flourishing adult is to have a stable 2-parent home that involves both a mother and the father.
Okay.
And we just know that.
Jonathan, final word to you.
Let me ask you can I ask you a very quick question then? So would you, in that case, ban single women, unmarried single women, for example, from adopting a child as well? On their own?
I think
because basically what you're saying is that's not ideal. It's not an ideal scenario. Maybe that woman would be violent as well. So are we not allowing that either?
I actually am quite passionate about this. I think single motherhood, especially with the rise that it's on in America, is a huge problem. And we know they have the same statistics where these kids being raised without homes are the same ones that are being prone to abuse, prone to illiteracy, and prone to high crime rates. So I do think being a single mother in today's day and age, if you're not present with your child, it is a big problem.
Well, I grew up with a single mother, and I turned out just fine, and so did lots of other people.
GBNews.com/your say if you would like to have your point of view on whether Jonathan turned out okay or not. No, I'm just joking. Guys, thank you very much. A fascinating and insightful conversation. Jonathan particularly, thank you very much for staying up into the wee hours. Now we're going to go to the panel. Joining me this evening in London, former Conservative MP Jane Stevenson, and in Washington DC, Republican strategist Matthew Hurt, and Washington Bureau Chief at The Guardian, David Smith. David, I will start with you, and we went on a few little kind of detours along that conversation, but I want to go back to the fundamental question that I asked at the very start, which is the right side of politics, I think quite correctly, has rallied against identity politics in recent years and decades. At the same time, the move by many Republican leaders to effectively put another form of identity politics in place would seem to be perhaps at tension or at odds with their approach in the past. Do you think that this is the right way to go about this?
Well, I think first I would say identity politics has certainly been used by the right as well, and Donald Trump has played white identity politics a lot. I think this is a moment of concern in the United States because just the other day, Andy Ogles, a congressman from Tennessee, a Republican, tweeted saying homosexuality has no place in America. There was obviously an outcry about that, and eventually he claimed it was actually a member of his staff who posted that message. But just the fact that that sort of thing is out in the public sphere is concerning. There was also some polling showing that Republican support for same-sex marriage has actually declined in recent years and is not what it used to be. All of this is grounds for concern. I think critics
David,
would say,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can I ask a question on that? Do you think that the decline in support for same-sex marriage in America, and more generally potentially an increase in tension amongst some minority communities, is because some people feel like they are having woke virtue signalling type stuff being shoved down their face because they see the pride flags every day, because they go into work and they're given particular types of DEI training? What was actually an issue which was pretty much settled in terms of gay rights. I'm not saying that there wasn't still problems, but we were getting to a pretty good place. Do you think that this sort of the Pride Month stuff and the more general types of virtue signalling stuff that we're talking about here may have an effect on the types of stats that you just mentioned?
Yes, I think it probably does provoke people and rub them the wrong way sometimes, and we've also seen that with the backlash against feminism and on some race issues as well. I'm afraid Republicans, Trump especially, I think sometimes weaponizes these issues as well, and we've seen that particularly with the transgender community. And to pick up on a point that Jonathan mentioned, it's disturbing because the rest of the world often looks to America to be a beacon on these issues. I used to be an Africa correspondent. I would travel to countries such as Uganda, where homosexuality is illegal, people were thrown in prison. America is seen as hopefully setting an example on this, and so it's worrying to see that kind of backsliding.
Well, Jane, is Pride Month the right way to set that example, though, in your eyes?
I think it's interesting looking at the American version of Pride Month compared to the UK. I think it seems like a bigger thing over there, but I think the debate was fascinating between the two commentators. I know so many gay couples who are incredibly dull and live very happy suburban lives, and some of them are excellent parents as well. I think Pride, if you're not sort of familiar with average, very dull gay people, then maybe this is your impression of what gay people do, run along the road wearing leather a lot, which isn't my experience of gay friends at all. But I think the other point about having something shoved in your face, the obvious example to me is Just Stop Oil and all the green activism. And I think most people think it's really sensible to be kind to the planet, but Just Stop Oil bringing London to a standstill week after week after week, Greta Thunberg whining on with any cause like this. I think if you push it too hard, you don't bring people along with you, you do more harm to your cause than good.
Matthew, your thoughts on that comment from Jane and the debate we saw more generally?
Well, Will, I do think the political reaction you see in states like my home state of Tennessee are in reaction to it being forced onto people. Most people just want to be left alone. And there was some comment and discussion about pride parades and others. Look, I was in London last July. I took a walking tour of Soho from a time-traveling tart, a cross-dressing man who gave a cultural tour of Soho. And I'm an adult and I can make that decision. I think for children to be exposed to not only the pride parades, but the deviant behavior that does in fact take place at those parades. Jonathan was incorrect, at least in the American perspective. There are lots of things that happen at these parades that you wouldn't want your grandmother to see. You certainly don't want your 6 or 7-year-old child to see. And then also on the scientific front, I think there's a serious conversation to be had about the difference between lesbian and gay people and a transgender political movement that is forcing children, tomboys who are young girls who maybe like to play baseball and engage in activities that are seen more for boys, a forcing of those young women primarily and some young boys to change their gender or to question their gender. There are many insidious elements to this conversation that goes far beyond observing someone's right to marry whom they want or to engage in a cultural lifestyle, so long as it's not exposed in the market square.
That comment that the LGB doesn't necessarily sit comfortably with the T, I think is a very important one. The T has been shoehorned in by organisations like Stonewall, and there are many, many gay people that I've spoken to who feel deeply uncomfortable with some of the more troubling aspects of gender ideology, like men in women's spaces, like men in women's sports, the arguments or the debates we've been having across society. And I think that they feel in some respects very, very frustrated that because of the nature of this debate, they are just grouped alongside them as if they all must have the same hive mind thinking. And that is certainly not the case. So I think that's a very, very good point to call out. What do you think at home? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Robert Shaw said, I don't often agree with Jonathan, but I did tonight. Pride exists because everyone deserves to live without apologising for who they are. If that bothers you, that's exactly why we still need it. Well, I'm sure that will make Jonathan's morning to hear that there is some support on your say for him. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, President Trump is planning even more renovations to Washington, D.C. just 24 hours after turning the taps back on to the reflecting pool. But also tonight,
these are historic vote shifts. You can see seat after seat where the Labour vote share is down 35% and we're up 37%. It's a direct switching.
well, the scare campaign is well and truly in full swing. Do you think Reform UK poses a threat to society? Because Labor certainly does. I'll bring you all the details on that shortly. This is The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GB News. Yes, well, President Trump has ordered the incoming Director of National Intelligence to purge officials appointed in the Obama and Biden administrations, much like the purge of Ben Leo earlier. The President's new Acting Director of National Intelligence, Bill Pulte, will be charged with overseeing the layoffs as he takes over from the departing Tulsi Gabbard. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, President Trump said, "I'd like to see it smaller. I think there are a lot of people in there that shouldn't be there." Well, joining me this evening is, of course, Jane Stevenson in London and Matthew Hurt and David Smith in Washington, D.C. I'll start with you, Jane, because I think there is an interesting conversation here where there are parallels across the United States and the United Kingdom. I think most keen observers of British politics would know that the biggest impediment to any future government is trying to actually get reform, and that is a reform with a small case R, through what is at the moment a bloated administrative state, getting it through a situation in which judges have a lot of power to stop things from happening, quangos have a lot of power to stop things from happening. this to me sounds like a good decision from Trump, who of course has the executive authority to be able to purge these institutions. If he thinks that's the best approach, surely that's the right thing to do.
I think we think of America because you do change when an administration changes. A lot of civil service changes as well. So you've got people who support the government in power, whereas in the UK, I think that has been a real stumbling block in the last Conservative government. I don't feel Whitehall generally was Brexit supporting. I don't think they were. It's fairly safe assumption. And I think if they don't want to do what they're being tasked to do, I think it will be more difficult. And there are very professional people in the civil service, but I think there's an argument for, and I do like my former colleague Danny Kruger is saying some really interesting things about reforming the Cabinet Office, bringing accountability back to the Prime Minister, bringing accountability back to Secretaries of State and to Number 10. So I think I can see why President Trump is trying to tighten up support for his party.
Yeah, and separately, Danny Kruger is being interviewed on a wonderful new GB News show called Fire at Will this coming Monday, available on YouTube and all podcast platforms. I hear the post is just brilliant. Make sure you check it out. David, on the story in... That obviously did not land. The host is me, by the way. David, on to you. The civil service in the United States, and particularly within the intelligence agencies, serve at the pleasure of the president. Surely it's not controversial to say that if he wants to get rid of people, if he wants to add new people, that is entirely his prerogative. I don't see what's so controversial about this.
I think we have to examine Donald Trump's motives. Every indication from his 2 terms is that he demands total loyalty from his cabinet and from staff all the way down the federal government. James Comey, former FBI director, told that story in the first term, going for dinner with Trump, and Trump said, "I expect you to be loyal to me," and Comey did not last long. I think the great fear this time is that some very professional people, and yes, they may be affiliated with the Republicans, some maybe Democrats, are going to be purged and thrown out and replaced by people who A, do not have the same level of expertise, and B, all about serving Donald Trump. And you just have to watch one of those Trump cabinet meetings to see the way all the secretaries go around the table lavishing him with praise, saying he's the greatest leader ever. It's pretty worrying if the entire federal government is following that blueprint, and it also really undercuts the strength of the federal government and empowers the president even more. And again, skeptics would look at that and say this is authoritarian behaviour.
Right of reply, Matthew Hurt.
Well, the question at hand here, Will, is does an executive have authority over executive branch agencies? And the answer is yes. When President Trump took office in January of 2025, Elon Musk, through Doge efforts, asked federal government employees to write 5 things they did in the course of the week. And it was to ensure that those individuals, one, were doing what the administration was expecting or doing their jobs, but also to loop in and build out a web of organizational charts of these agencies. And several friends of mine who were Republicans who had been federal government employees for a long time engaged and did what Elon Musk asked them to do, and were summarily fired by longtime Democrat dug-in civil servants. What your viewers may not know is that there are 2 kinds of federal government employees in the United States. There are political appointees and there are careerists, people who will serve most of their careers in the federal government. And what oftentimes happens at the end of a Democratic administration, say President Obama or President Joe Biden, is those Democrat political appointees then dig in as careerists. And so you have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of ideological Democrats who are in the government right now who have no business being there because they are actively thwarting the president's agenda.
Very quick follow-up question on that, and it goes generally to Donald Trump's enduring mission throughout his 2 terms. He said he was going to drain the swamp. This could be seen as part of that agenda. Do you think he's drained the swamp?
Well, Will, that's a great question. This is a significant promise from both the first and second Trump terms. As someone who professionally staffs people in the presidential administration and on the Hill, I think these are serious efforts to put people in who believe in America first. And I think this is a move in the right direction for the president as far as draining the swamp goes.
David, has he drained the swamp?
I think Donald Trump has become the swamp. Many observers would argue, particularly the second term has been phenomenal for Trump's own finances through crypto schemes and his family's investments and so on. Polls show his disapproval rating at a record high. I think a lot of voters are cottoning onto this and saying, wait a minute, Trump campaigned on the promise to not only drain the swamp, but bring down prices and keep America out of foreign wars. And yet here we are at war with Iran. The price of petrol is higher than normal. And Trump himself is doing a roaring trade in terms of business.
Yeah, well, that goes to probably his second mantra of Make America Great Again. But on that first mantra, Jane, of draining the swamp, do you think, as we come to the finish line of the Trump presidency in the next couple of years, do you think he has lived up to that promise?
I think it's been interesting to watch his second term because he doesn't have the election looming that he's going back to the American people. So I think he's felt liberated from being up for election next time. He's certainly been bold. I think the foreign wars haven't been popular, as I understand it, but I don't want to teach my grandmother to suck eggs with American panellists here. But it's been an interesting watch compared to his first term.
OK, let's take a look at some of the other main news in America. Breaking tonight, the US Central Command says they have shot down 4 Iranian one-way attack drones that were launched towards the Strait of Hormuz, claiming the attack drones posed an immediate threat to regional maritime traffic. In other news, an American journalist who had been living and working in China for over a decade has pleaded guilty to working as an illegal agent for the People's Republic of China. The American economy has created just over 170,000 jobs in May as pubs, bars, restaurants, I should say, have ramped up hiring ahead of the World Cup. Elsewhere, President Trump has said he would be willing to meet with Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei if ongoing negotiations between Washington and Tehran yield a deal. To be a fly on the wall there. And finally, Madonna is reportedly in secret talks for a UK show to celebrate her new album after bringing New York to a standstill with a surprise gig. Take a look. Well, Jane Stevenson was dancing along to Madonna in our London studio, so she must still have something. I admire her energy. How old is Madonna now? She must be getting on a bit, and she looks like she's still got it. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, President Donald Trump is planning yet more dramatic changes to Washington just 24 hours after turning the taps back on at the National Mall's famous reflecting pool. But also tonight,
these are historic vote shifts. You can see seat after seat where the Labour vote share is down 35% and we're up 37%. It's a direct switching.
Well, do you think at home that Nigel Farage's Reform UK party poses a genuine threat to society? I suspect I know the answer for most of you, because tonight Labor figures are making increasingly dramatic claims about the party's rise. I'll bring you all those details shortly. This is The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. An unseasonably windy day to come for southern areas. Heavy rain and thunderstorms as well this afternoon, but it should turn a little bit drier from the west this evening. But for the time being, this area of low pressure brings some very strong winds to parts of southwest England and the south coast later on this afternoon. And heavy rain will push north and eastwards through this afternoon to bring many of us a pretty unsettled and damp day. There's a risk of thundery downpours as well across more northwestern areas, parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England into this afternoon. Temperatures will be a little bit below average, very close to where they have been already this week. Into this evening, it does turn drier from the west, so some brighter skies to come across more western areas, but across the north remaining quite cloudy. Temperatures around 12 to 13 degrees, so a bit disappointing for the time of year. There will be some brighter spells between showers, but again, there's that risk of thundery downpours as we head into parts of northwest England, so do take care if you're travelling out and about. There may be some water on the roads. Quite a lot of clouds still lingering around this area of low pressure, but there will be some brighter skies across the southwest just for a time. We've got a ridge of high pressure between systems, so a brief lull in the wet and windy weather to come tonight, but still quite a lot of cloud pushing in from the west through the early hours of Sunday. So I think clearer skies for more eastern areas by Sunday morning, cloudier and a little bit wetter in the west, some light drizzle, but it's going to be a pretty mild night, a mild start to Sunday with southwesterly winds. The winds strengthen again around the next area of low pressure, this time up to the north and west. That sweeps in, bringing heavy bursts of rain to parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland through Sunday. But across more eastern areas of England, eastern Scotland, it should be a much drier and perhaps a bit of a sunnier day as well. So temperatures will climb into the 20s for the first time in a little while. So feeling a little bit more pleasant with calmer winds in the east.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GB News. Thank you for staying with us. Well, President Trump has laid out his plans to build a promenade for the Lincoln Memorial because he claims it is facing the wrong way. Outlining plans to reporters in the Oval Office, the President said they want to call it the Trump Promenade. I don't know if I want to do that, but it's going to be beautiful. That's typically Trumpian rhetoric. But as the President's latest plans will undoubtedly face fierce opposition from his political opponents, is his latest bold move innovation or cultural desecration? Joining me this evening, former Conservative MP Jane Stevenson, and in Washington, Matthew Hurt and David Smith. I, just for my own amusement, am going to reread that quote, team. The President said they want to call it the Trump Promenade. I don't know if I want to do that, but it's going to be beautiful. Matthew Hurt, is it going to be beautiful?
Well, one of the great things about what's happening in D.C. right now is that President Trump has made a concerted effort to clean up the city and to beautify Washington, D.C., including the monuments, memorials. We see now the reflecting pool. Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum tweeted a photo from last night. It looks beautiful. I think the press and leftist agitators want to call these things like the Arc de Trump, which is supposed to be in Arlington across the river, or the Trump Promenade. The unfortunate part about this for President Trump is that he makes so many things about him that it is almost inescapable that we have a conversation about this. But I think generally the idea that Washington, D.C. should be a beautiful city with beautiful monuments is an admirable notion.
At the same time, though, David, I imagine out of a list of priorities for the American government, this probably doesn't rank in the top 1,000. And this goes alongside Trump consistently talking about this new ballroom at the White House. You mentioned earlier the new $250 bill, which I understand is actually closer to fruition than what you may have suggested. I think it's very much going ahead from what I am aware of. Is he losing focus on what is really important at the expense of what some people may perceive to be vanity projects?
Yeah, I mean, Democrats have dubbed that ballroom the Marie Antoinette ballroom. There is a kind of let them eat cake aspect to all of this. I think many voters are utterly baffled. Why is the president constantly talking about the East Wing and the ballroom and the Arch and the Lincoln Reflecting Pool and the Kennedy Center, where, by the way, a court has now ordered that his name has to be removed, and yet not talking about the economic pain of the American people and all the reforms they need on education, healthcare, just the price of goods. There's a huge disconnect there, and I think Republicans especially are cursing this as they face midterm elections in November. Just play devil's advocate for a moment. I will say I've lived in Washington for 10 years. I've certainly noticed fountains that are constantly dry. If Trump makes those flow with water again, that will be very welcome. And yes, the Lincoln Reflecting Pool is looking pretty good now. The city certainly needed an overhaul. I would say there are people in other parts of Washington, particularly the southeast, who will not benefit from this, who would love some economic investment. And of course, like all capital cities, there'll be people in the rest of the country watching enviously saying, why don't we get these improvements? So I think there will be some benefits to it, but at the moment they are outweighed by the sheer, colossal vanity project of all of this and the attempt to deflect from the cost of living and the Iran war.
Jane, is this a deflection?
I'm a bit mystified about what the promenade. I'd like to see a picture before I make a proper judgment. I visited Washington a few years ago. I mean, it's beautiful, and the Lincoln Memorial, I hope it's not gilding the lily, because it's very moving to walk along that pool and see war memorials and other things scattered. I think national monuments are incredibly important, and they bring people together. I think in the UK we have our cenotaph, we have Nelson's column, all of those things. They are our history, and I find them very important.
Matthew, I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of people in this country are just fatigued by a government that doesn't seem to prioritise its heritage, its history, the greatness of Britain. It talks it down. And what you could say about this, even if it doesn't directly link to geopolitics or the cost of living, it speaks to what something Trump genuinely believes in, which is American greatness. Now, that's something which I envy at the moment, living in a country which I don't think has a government that truly believes in its own greatness.
Well, I agree with you there, but I would be remiss not to agree with David here. I think that there are many things that the American voter is considering heading into November. Look, I'm the Republican strategist on this program several nights a month, and I want Republicans to win the Senate and win the House and hold them both for the remainder of President Trump's time in the White House. But these are oftentimes seen as distractions by many voters in the middle. I love living so close to Washington, D.C. My grandfather is honored at the Korean War Memorial, and it is beautiful to be able to wander around a city and see these monuments and see the connection to culture and history. And in fact, when I was in London last July, I walked outside the halls of Parliament and took a look at the statues and the historic monuments. And I think it is so important to have that connection to history and have that connection to culture. And it is unfortunate that your country is maybe not doing that, but I wish President Trump would focus on both the historic element of Washington, D.C. and the important issues facing many Americans.
And if I can just come in, I think as so often, Trump does latch onto a kernel of truth, like with draining the swamp. And in this instance, he's not entirely wrong that the White House would benefit from a ballroom. And he's not entirely wrong that foreign leaders should come to Washington and be impressed by the monuments and not see graffiti and dirt everywhere. But in classic Trump fashion, his solutions are often a bit clumsy or a bit egotistical and often all about him, and that's what we're seeing here with these vanity projects. And I think it's fascinating that in his second term especially, Trump is so focused on legacy because he comes from that construction industry background. He's a builder, he developed in New York. Part of his thinking is, how can I leave my stamp on Washington physically and permanently in that way? And then his second legacy thought is all about foreign policy, like many American presidents before him. It's easier to make big moves and get things done in foreign policy, whereas he seems to have almost given up really on a domestic agenda and legislation in Congress. That's too messy and a bit boring.
I think there is a bit of space to the right on Mount Rushmore, so I wouldn't entirely rule that out before in the next 2 years. I want to move on, panel. We want to delve into some of the main stories on the front pages of tomorrow's, or I should say today's papers, starting with the newspaper, which is reporting that civil servants were ordered to delete any messages discussing the King's views on Donald Trump after he reportedly expressed his concerns over the president's state visit to the UK. Joining me, of course, Jane Stevenson, Matthew Hurt and David Smith. Matthew, I'll go to you first on this. Is this surprising? Should this be something that we are concerned about? Is this anti-transparency? What do you make of this?
You know, this is hitting me as brand new information. I was such a supporter and am such a supporter of the state visit of King Charles and Queen Camilla to the United States just several weeks ago. I thought it was very important for our special relationship. I also think that President Trump was uniquely positioned as someone whose mother and whose family had such a keen affection for the royal family. So this is new. It's sinking into me. It's setting in. I'm not surprised that a government would ask its bureaucrats to delete something that may be unflattering given a state visit.
Yeah, Jane, what do you make of this? You were talking about the power of the civil service in the United Kingdom earlier. What do you make of this story?
Well, I think we know about it anyway, so clearly deleting the messages, there was little point to it because we're all now speculating and imagining what was written in the messages, even though we're not seeing them. So I think the scene in the Oval Office with President Zelensky made many people in Britain feel really uneasy. I thought it was excruciating, actually. But I think in an age of clarity, it reminds me of going to Sunday school as a child, and the phrase that stuck with me was, "Be sure your sin will find you out." And in a digital media age with 24-hour news cycle, you can't just say, "Oh, well, we'll delete some messages. No one will ever know about it." It's not realistic. I'm afraid we are living in a glass house now, and people all need to be aware of that and be careful what they put to paper.
Yeah, I may have been a tad unclear with how I communicated this. So civil servants were ordered to delete any messages discussing the King's views. So whilst I've got no doubt there would have been many members of the civil service who would have had their own personal reservations about this visit, this is referring to messages from civil servants referring to the King's views where allegedly he expressed reservations about the visit. David, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree at this point. We're finding it with some election candidates right now that your digital trail follows you everywhere, what you put on social media and emails and so on. I think in this instance there'll be great concern not to put a foot wrong because I believe this refers to the state visit by Trump to Britain, but then of course more recently we had the reverse state visit with Charles coming to the US, and that was seen as a great success, and Charles was praised for carrying it off really perfectly, and we had that sort of coup de théâtre at the end with the bell that said Trump on it, rescued from a submarine. It was all exquisite. So the last thing the British government, the civil service want is even the tiniest infraction that could put a fly in that ointment. I think the good news for them is that Trump himself will probably not read these reports or sort of second-hand accounts of Charles's views. He'll remember the personal impression of that meeting itself, and that carried off very well. But yeah, I mean, fascinating to see all these ups and downs in the UK relationship on a night we're also talking about JD Vance's intervention and so on.
Yeah, I think it was an example of that there is still some British soft power there, and I think it was conducted incredibly well by the King. Let's move to The Guardian, which leads on a warning by Labor's Deputy Leader Lucy Powell that reform is destabilising democracy by spreading divisive material that's being amplified by bots and troll farms. Jane, I would suggest, and this has also been the narrative that has flown through the awful Henry Novak saga, where the Labor Party, in my view, has tried to skirt difficult conversations by saying, well, we just don't want to promote division. Division's already here in this country. This is a deeply divided country now, and that's not a good thing, and I don't take any joy in saying it. But is this a fair point from Lucy Powell, or is this, again, just another way of shutting down debate by saying, stop being divisive?
Exactly that. And I am absolutely sick of Labour doing this. And for those unaware of stagecraft and spin, if you haven't noticed it by now, you'll notice it soon. Whenever Labour faces scrutiny on absolutely anything, or whenever they're cornered, they try and mention something that you can't come back on. So they mention someone who's died or been murdered. They mention victims of Epstein. When the Mandelson scandal was on, every Labour MP, we must consider the victims to avoid scrutiny. And yes, of course, there are those people, and this week we've seen it with Henry Novak's killing, and we've just heard from Rhiannon White's mum on GB News this evening. Labour pick and chooses its causes, and I think reform, to see week after week Keir Starmer attacking Nigel Farage in PMQs, knowing he doesn't have a right of reply. I think Labour, this is backfiring on them hugely. And what Reform have done is blurred that old line of left and right. In establishment versus ordinary working people. And they've been very successful. And a lot of Labour voters do not identify with Keir Starmer. They don't identify with North London. And Lucy Powell saying things like this will only amplify Reform's message.
David, can I just quickly get your thoughts on particularly that point that this may be a tactic which is backfiring on Labor?
Yeah, I think they should look to America and the Democratic Party for a lesson, because over the last 10 years, Democrats have frequently accused Donald Trump of undermining democracy. Some would argue with good evidence, but as a political tool, it's not worked out particularly well for them. I think partly because voters don't go to the ballot box saying I'm voting to save democracy. They're thinking more about economic kitchen table issues and so on. But then secondly, also, once you go down that road of saying democracy is under threat, then the other party makes the same claim. Yes. It weakens trust in institutions, and you're really stuck. It's a tricky one.
That is a tricky one. Well, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much to my wonderful panel across Washington, D.C. as well as London this evening. It's been lovely to step into the hosting chair for the final hour, and I will be back with you tomorrow night. Make sure you join us on The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. An unseasonably windy day to come for southern areas. Heavy rain and thunderstorms as well this afternoon, but it should turn a little bit drier from the west this evening. But for the time being, this area of low pressure brings some very strong winds to parts of southwest England and the south coast later on this afternoon. And heavy rain will push north and eastwards through this afternoon to bring many of us a pretty unsettled and damp day. There's a risk of thundery downpours as well across more northwestern areas, parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England into this afternoon. Temperatures will be a little bit below average, very close to where they have been already this week. Into this evening, it does turn drier from the west, so some brighter skies to come across more western areas, but across the north remaining quite cloudy. Temperatures around 12 to 13 degrees, so a bit disappointing for the time of year. There will be some brighter spells between showers, but again, there's that risk of thundery downpours as we head into parts of northwest England, so do take care if you're travelling out and about. There may be some water on the roads. Quite a lot of clouds still lingering around this area of low pressure, but there will be some brighter skies across the southwest just for a time. We've got a ridge of high pressure between systems, so a brief lull in the wet and windy weather to come tonight, but still quite a lot of cloud pushing in from the west through the early hours of Sunday. So I think clearer skies for more eastern areas by Sunday morning, cloudier and a little bit wetter in the west, some light drizzle, but it's going to be a pretty mild night, a mild start to Sunday with southwesterly winds. The winds strengthen again around the next area of low pressure, this time up to the north and west. That sweeps in, bringing heavy bursts of rain to parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland through Sunday. But across more eastern areas of England, eastern Scotland, it should be a much drier and perhaps a bit of a sunnier day as well. So temperatures will climb into the 20s for the first time in a little while. So feeling a little bit more pleasant with calmer winds in the east.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain. He can say whatever he wants. A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The GB News audience is different, it's unique, because they see through the nonsense.
We want to debate with each other, we want to listen and maybe learn.
We have a chat. That's what we do. We try and have a chat.
They'll watch my programme while they're eating their tea, they'll watch breakfast while they're busy getting their kids ready for school.
We want to hear what matters to you, what is news for you.
And what's brought you out here today?
What are the biggest issues affecting this particular area?
The audience are the best thing about GB News.
Their friends, their family. They're people who need to have their voices heard.
They're passionate about the channel, they're passionate about what they believe in.
The one thing about GB News is you get a chance to speak.
Talk to me about why so many people have gathered here today.
Do you want to say something back in return? The GB News audience is what makes GB News special.
It's incredible to see. They shape our programmes, they shape our output, and they shape our channel.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain. What a time. Right, thank you very much to our wonderful live studio audience. It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christie's Tonight.
Well, I think...
Was it yes or no, Mr Lammy? Would you take the knee for Henry Novak?
I think no.
David Lammy wanted us all to take the knee for George Floyd, but not for Henry Novak. And?
Mr Speaker, I don't believe there's two-tier policing in this country.
Does anyone here think that there is two-tier policing in this country? Yeah. There you go. Also tonight...
Nossa boca do rio, moços. Moços, isto é na nossa boca do rio, caralho.
Yeah, well, thousands of illegal migrants have just gone missing. So that's great, isn't it? Should we just tag them? I mean, should we just tag them? And that's what we're going to talk about. Plus...
regret the whole friendship with Epstein.
Now, still not.
Well, I mean, the big story for me is what on earth happened to his face, actually. But he's got a massive bruise on his face, hasn't he? But should the king really be paying for Andrew's daughters to live a life of luxury? It's divided people, that one. We'll also be talking about this.
This is Pride in London. We've got Sadiq Khan, our mayor of London, here as well. Happy Pride. Happy Pride.
So, been a bit of a hoo-ha this week, hasn't there? Should Muslims who don't like Pride Month leave Britain? Or have they got a point?
Are you ready?
It's a bit much. Sometimes, isn't it, really? And what is this?
Tied with England. Yeah, well, honestly, Brazil's always been my favourite team.
Yeah, what? Exactly, what? I know. Lewis Hamilton just proving, just again, how unlikable he often is. Anyway, on my panel tonight, we have got Reform UK's 2028 London mayoral candidate, Layla Cunningham. We have got former Labour MP, he's sound as a pound, it's Stephen Pound. Oh, come on. We've got broadcasting royalty, Christo Fufa. And making his debut on the Friday Night Audience Show's campaigns director at the Taxpayers Alliance, the wonderful William Yarwood. All right, so get ready, Britain. Here we go. OK, so would you take the knee for Henry Novak? Next.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Good evening. Here are your headlines at 9 o'clock. US Vice President J.D. Vance has blamed the murder of British teenager Henry Novak on mass migration, condemning the government's handling of the student's killing. He said Henry Novak died the same way civilization dies, abandoned, handcuffed by authorities who neither trusted nor cared for him and accused him of hate crimes he did not commit. Mr. Novak was arrested and handcuffed as he lay dying while his killer, Vikram Digwar, who stabbed him 5 times, was treated as a victim by officers. Digwar had falsely claimed he had been subjected to racial abuse. The man at the centre of one of Britain's most high-profile miscarriages of justice has been sentenced to 24 years in prison. Paul Quinn has been jailed for a 2003 rape, a case Andrew Malkinson was wrongly convicted of. He spent 17 years in prison before his conviction was quashed.